Hello and welcome to the deepest dive on Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree from MinnMax. MinnMax is a place about games, friends, and getting better. This is the deepest dive, which is usually the best, most thorough discussion about a game on the internet. In this case, we've got some hot competition because everyone in the world is talking about Shadow of the Erdtree right now. But we have what they don't, which is hundreds of comments from our community. We've got brilliant panelists. We are going to talk all about kind of our first weekend with the game. There's not an easy way to break this game up, and so we've just been playing since release. We're going to talk about wherever that got us, and then we're going to come back here after like a month and talk about everything in the game when we're presumably all pros and we'll have like beaten the final boss at soul level 1 and all that. Before we start, just a couple announcements. One, this might be a lengthy podcast. I don't know how long it's going to be. But if you would like a podcast version of it, so you don't just have to watch it on YouTube, you can join MinnMax at the $5 tier on Patreon. But if that's not enough for you, and if you think, podcasts are fine, but I really want something in return for my Patreon support, good news. We have 100 copies of the Metroidvania from 2024, Tales of Kenzera Zao, a game that was critically acclaimed that many people have said is like one of the most emotional endings of the year. If you join MinnMax at the $2 tier, we will send you one of those codes. But we only have 100 of them. So if you're looking at MinnMax and the number of supporters is below 4,705, we've got a code with your name on it. If it's above that, then you're just going to have to join because you like us and the work we're doing, I guess. That's enough of that. My name is Jacob Geller. I've been playing Shadow of the Erdtree a whole bunch. I will be hosting this. I am joined by Shadow of the Erdtree Pro, Sarah Podzorski.
I didn't think you were going to say my name. Oh, yes. I love the worms.
I am joined by Shadow of the Erdtree expert, Kyle Hilliard.
Sure, yeah, expert, that's me.
Knows all the lore, knows all the characters' names and motivations.
Throw trivia at me, I'm gonna get it every time.
And returning from the Armored Core 6 deepest dive, in which she was our translator for the whole goddamn series, Renata Price, back on MinnMax.
Howdy. Hi. Hello.
Renata, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We were very excited about doing an Erdtree deepest dive, and yet getting people to sign up for it from MinnMax was kind of it seemed like a tall order. Ben declared that he had no interest in returning to the world of Elden Ring, and then at 10 a.m. this morning, I looked at his icon on Discord, and it said that he was playing Elden Ring. So
he was streaming it, right? Like you gotta jump on
that.
No,
he was streaming it last night. He was not streaming it this morning. He was just playing it. He was just having a blast. So we are here to talk about our first weekend with the game, everything that entailed. But before we do that, I've got all these comments here, and I want to play the game that we always play on Deepest Dive. Most common comment. What do you think the people of MinnMax wrote in most frequently to talk about in this first weekend?
Is it like about the bosses specifically?
Oh, you're asking for hints, Sarah.
It could be.
I'm 20 questioning this, okay? I'm in 20 questions. Is it about the bosses? Is it?
It's about a specific aspect of the game.
My guess is it about how many Scattertree blessings we each had by the end of the weekend?
Interesting. Okay.
Is it about how to pronounce Scadootree?
Kyle?
I'm guessing it's gonna be the big giant fire pit monster guys. This is my expertise coming through, by the way. Clearly I know what they're called and what, that
Big
they just are like
guys
that you just like can't deal with. Like they're just crazy, they're horrifying, you leave them alone, you don't engage. Something along those lines with those dudes.
Kyle, there are a couple about that, but Sarah and Ren, you're both pretty much right in that there were an overwhelming number of comments about the Scadootree Erdtree, Erdtree. Someone wrote in and said, let me find it real quick, that it is in fact pronounced shadow. Skidoo is derived from Old English and is just pronounced shadow. So the big shadowy tree at the center of Shadow of the Erdtree is the shadow tree. That's from Alan L. And he says, it feels right in line with when I pronounced that Gaol is just pronounced jail, which I also had that realization at some point where it's like, oh, it's not Gaol.
I still pronounce it Gaol, and I'm still going to pronounce it Erdtree.
I will say, this sounds like someone speaking with confidence that I just believe, right? Like, oh yeah, that's Shadow.
I will say, I already appreciate across the board that the names are a lot easier to follow of the NPCs. Like, they don't all have like Radagon, Radon, America, Melina, Millicent, Melania. Like, we've got like already we have names that don't follow that naming scheme, and I so appreciate it. I just so appreciate that they all have different starting letters.
Though there is a Rolana, which is as compared to the Renala in the main game and the Renata on this podcast. There were so many comments about the Erdtree and just kind of that whole balancing thing. But before we get into that, I'm curious on kind of like where y'all were entering this from. Tell me about your characters, kind of your general build, and also like the level that you were going in at, I guess.
I guess I can start. I started a new game because I didn't want to do like any of this new game plus stuff. So I finished it. I had a new game plus. I wanted to just start from scratch. I went in at I took on Mog at about level like 120-ish was when I went in. I was using dual scythes, which is my go-to build. But then when I went in, I quickly switched to the light greatsword is my new best friend. So I went in 120, had a little bit of an issue at the beginning of the DLC. Once I got enough Erdtree fragments, though, it felt like it balanced out really well. Like at the beginning I felt underleveled, but then once I collected more and more, I feel better off than I used to be.
And is it like a dual scythe with like faith build or dex?
Yeah,
or
so
like,
it was a dual scythe build, faith on one, bleed on the other one. Like you go in, you golden vow, you flame within, blah, 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 blah. But then I switched to the dual scythes because in my opinion, it really feels like the DLC has a lot of movement in it. And a lot of the weapons have a lot of movement animations. Like the bosses have a bunch of movement. They move. Everything's moving a lot more than it used to in Elden Ring. So I've been playing with some of the new weapons, like the dancer swords, the light great swords, the circular knives, like everything that you get to do. I've never felt so beautiful. I just want to say that. I've never felt so beautiful in in a Souls game before. I feel like a fairy princess dancing around on the battlefield. Incredible. I love it.
I have just a quick clarifying question. Are you forgetting the name of the light greatsword, or are you intentionally avoiding using it?
I picked up that sword and I said, "This is for girls only."
Exactly.
Okay, and then I got 2 of them.
It's the classic drill tweet. This sword can only be handled by the delicate touch of a lesbian. I picked up Milady and I was like, damn right it can. And then I immediately
that's what I said. I said, this is for the girlies.
I got that and I tipped my fedora and I said, thank you very much. Renata, what is your build going in?
So I went in at around 120 is where I started the DLC, and then at some point I was like, "This is I'm doing this wrong. I'm doing this wrong. Actually, I think I'm doing a bad job. I'm gonna grind up to 150. I did that this morning.
Okay.
I just ground up to 150 in just in one sitting this morning by like throwing on a YouTube video. But I went into this with a mixed int faith build. That's what I went to the end of the game with. I had a very long-winded backstory for my character as
I was
this
going
person
to ask because
dealing with please.
I was just gonna say your mechs in Armored Core, you had such kind of intimate understandings of not only what their guns were, but what they were as
what their
as
vibes
characters.
were. Yeah. So yeah, basically my Elden Ring character, Zada, her whole thing is that in the main game, she was basically treating faiths like Pokemon and trying to just trying to catch them all. And basically my lore for her was she was kind of becoming trying to become like an embodiment of faith broadly, not any one specific faith, but just the act of faith itself. And so it was like, so I made her int faith because like the game like really blurs the distinction between those two things, especially in the underground area in the Shifra River Valley. In like Shifra, like int and faith are like not considered like separate things, and so I was like, let's lean into that for the character in like the base game. And then I went into Erdtree and I was like, all right, I'm gonna respec. I'm gonna walk away from this life. I'm going to go, you know, fully physical. I'm gonna do this. And I did it for a little bit. I had my blood milady, and then I fought Rolana and was like, oh, actually no, I want these. I want her swords.
I saw her and
hers.
I was like, give me some of that.
I would like hers, please. And so, but build-wise, the way I've been playing it is okay. Well, here's where I reveal a great shame of mine. I've been playing most of this game on a slight delay because I didn't want to play it in my office. I wanted to play it on the couch, and so I've been using Steam streaming to my laptop in the other room with like it's a wired connection. Like there's an Ethernet cable, so
like
I'm not
nobody else has the right to complain about like performance issues. Only you do. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear these FPS bros be like, I lost a frame. Like.
I was gonna say,
also,
this is
you
your like
can't do
Dragon
that.
Ball Z weighted clothing. You're like when you play without input delay, you're gonna be unstoppable.
This is not a joke. This is how I became good at Lies of P. Having the weird like training clothes on, because also I've been using a parry based build. Like I've been playing the game almost exclusively by parrying. When I fought Rolana, I was probably like, I think I was like Shadow Tree Blessing level like 3. It was like 2 or 3 when I fought Rolana, and I've seen most people recommending to take her on at like 6 or 7 minimum. And so I just like had to like hard study the fight and like learn how to parry at 44 frames per second with the streaming delay. And so just that is
a
how
challenge run in itself.
Exactly. However, I think it's been going really well. I don't know. I tried to walk away from int faith, and then I found the dual light great swords that scale off of int faith and dex, and was like, all right, well, sorry, int faith, dex, and strength, and I was like, well, okay, here we go.
And Kyle, I assume you have an equally detailed backstory for your character.
No, I like you guys are borderline talking gibberish to me. It's like how. Like you said, like you have like a faith build. I was like, I don't know what that is, man. Like
one of the magics.
It's so funny. Like it's funny that you're playing on a delay run on it, because like my for Father's Day, my wife got me like the PlayStation portable thing. I forget what it's called. I'm really bad with names for this whole deepest dive. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play Erdtree on this thing. And I played it for like 10 minutes. And I was like, I can't do this. I just can't do this. So she bought me this wonderful new toy, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta play Elden Ring on the TV. It's just not gonna work. But yeah, I really approach this game in like the most boring, incorrect way, to the point where like I am literally using the scimitars that I found like in the beginning of the game, and just leveled the crap out of them. They're like max level. And I just use that exclusively. Mimic tier, I have Storm Blade, which just lets me sort of shoot a Kamehameha at enemies. And like I have like almost all of my experience in dexterity and the other one that like raises strength. Like I really approach this with very little thought. I would argue I'm doing it wrong. Because like I haven't even like I get new weapons and I'm like, I don't want to go into the menu. I'm having so much more fun running around here. Like to the point where like my coworkers at Game Inform, Marcus Stewart, is just like raising his eyebrows at me. I'm like, how are you enjoying this? Like you're not even experimenting. And I just run in and I just wail on people with my scimitars, and I'm having a good old time. And I don't know anyone's name. And when menu options come up, I'm like, sure, let's do it.
We have representatives from both camps in the community. King Prometheus said, finding so many new weapons that are tempting me to change my build entirely are awesome. I'm going to go in a New Game Plus and use them for the whole run. But then we have Craig G, who said, I've found, a ton of weapons, armor, spells, and I'm still rocking my untouched build from platinuming the main game. Strength, Dex, Bleed, 2 big heavy great stars, and my Chad Mimic tier +10. So
plus 10 on that Mimic
works
tier, baby.
Either way. I will say, just for my part, I wanted to do kind of a faith holy build because I haven't really done something like that while replaying the main game. And then I just ended up with the Blasphemous Blade, which you get from Rykard, which is just kind of a win button. It's the Sarah, you referred to it as like the Barbie arm sword.
It's got the little tiny arms.
It's just got like hands all over it, and its weapon art is just an enormous like geyser of lava that it sends out in front of it. And so I've been playing with that. It beats everything. It's incredibly good. It's so good, in fact, that I was having a pretty easy time with the DLC, and I was worried that I had like gamed my way out of it, especially with how much people were talking about the difficulty. And so I went back and beat the first 3 bosses, also with a strength build that's just using like a big club, so I could be sure that I hadn't just like trivialized the entire thing for myself by using a big lava sword.
Wait, like you went and re-beat the bosses? Like you fought them
like
again?
I'm playing it on 2 save files. Most of it has been on 1,
okay.
but like I did try a completely different
What's
build
wrong
just to
with
make
you?
sure.
Yeah,
I can
that's
barely
what I've
beat it
been
on one
thinking.
save file.
I'm
Like,
sorry.
getting my ass kicked.
Yeah, I don't mean to be uncouth, but like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, I can't believe the people have that much ownership over your heart. Like,
I was like, I don't want to be making this like not fun by just running with this. And I have been, I've been switching up weapons, but like,
Of course.
I had my other build, which is the first build that I played through Elden Ring with, has that big Bloodborne-y like pizza cutter weapon, that just like has the big
pizza
blade
cutter.
that spins. And so like I brought that into the DLC and I wanted to see if it worked. And it turns out like, yes, it's also good.
Sorry. Just okay. I understand now why you have 2 characters, but why did you have 2 characters before this? Because you can just respec whenever. Like there's just a person who's
you can't like go and refight all the bosses again.
Exactly. I wanted to clarify. I was trying to clarify when you started the second playthrough. That is what I'm trying to do.
So here's what I did. When the game came out, I played through with a strength build and beat it, but did not go to New Game Plus. 2 months ago, I started a completely fresh save file in preparation for the DLC, but my other character is still just like hanging out, so it was not hard to level it up to DLC.
Got it. I was just trying to clarify. Thank you.
I mean, Sarah, I'm impressed that you started a new game. Like I was not. I have 1 save file. I'm very lame when it comes to this game.
But Kyle,
and, like,
you're in New Game Plus, right?
Yeah. So I beat the game. And then beat it again in New Game Plus. Like I got the Platinum trophy. I'm playing on PS5. And so that was the save that I booted up. I had to go beat Moog before the DLC. But again, because I had beaten him once on my singular save in New Game Plus. So yeah, I am now, I think I went into it at like 180 was my New Game Plus sort of level. And now I'm up to like 196 playing through the DLC. And it's been going smoothly. I haven't hit too many hurdles, and that's kind of how I like it. I don't mind if like I had like one boss that I beat on my first try, and that's rare for me. And I was happy about that. Like I was grateful.
Kyle, can I ask, because I feel like on the MinnMax show you were talking about how you like put all your stats into like damage and stuff, and I thought, oh no, has Kyle not leveled Vitality? Do you know what your like life stat is at?
Yeah, let me see. I literally have the game open. I mean, I've put stuff in stamina and vitality, right? But like the vast majority goes like vigor is 35, but strength and dexterity is like 75.
No. See, Kyle, you gotta put
No,
for you being like,
no,
"No,
Kyle, no!"
Stop booing him. He's right. I also have 35 vitality. Go fuck yourself.
Hey,
What's
thank
wrong with you
thank
people?
You are, but Kyle, you're probably at like way above the soft caps for like your dexterity and strength. Like you're probably getting diminishing
So
returns from
confusing.
there.
Yeah. See, that's the stuff that I just don't have the patience for. Is like,
Look, you want to
like
play
understanding
dumb?
all that.
Put points in health, baby. Nothing's dumber than that.
Literally, you have to know like 3 things. I promise you, you gotta know like 3 things. Just don't make him go over 80. If a stat goes over 80,
Okay.
don't need it. Don't need those points
none.
over 80 at all.
What's your highest stat then? If you only have 32 vigor, what's your highest? And what is it at?
What's my? I'm sorry. What was that?
Your highest attribute? Is it strength?
Dexterity. Yeah.
Dexterity? What is it at?
76.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, you could take 15
Probably take
points out of
16,
that, barely notice a difference, and put those 16 in health, and you would have so much more health. But you're
I'll
playing
give
it
that
and
a
you're
shot.
loving
Like
it,
honestly,
so-
I'm excited for the deepest dive to get tips like that because I'm just such like I'm just gonna hit my head against this brick wall until I break through. Kind of from game player, I kind of get joy out of that. But like it hit a point where I was throwing a lot in vigor, and it's like I'm just all these bosses are just like I'm not feeling that like I'm lasting
I feel like
that
we're
much
not
longer,
playing the same
you know?
game, Kyle.
Well, that's
What
the
is
joy of Elden
happening?
Ring, I suppose, right?
Because
Yeah,
you're like, I beat this boss first try, and I'm getting my head smashed into the dirt, and it's like, eat some dirt, poor person. Like, get some more level vitality, get some more skidoo fragments, you brokey.
It is interesting to hear, for instance, Luis Perez from the community said, I find it to be a blessing and a curse that every single boss can one-shot you. Even the Black Jail Knight, I found, was the bane of many returning players. You have to watch out for all their movements and use all consumables. Which is interesting because, like, that has not been my experience, and I think it really has to do with how you are weighing your equipment load and your stats and whatever. Because, like, for me, all the time I've got the talisman that allows you to have way more carrying weight. And so I have on almost the heaviest armor, like, at all times. And I've got the one that's, like, big reduction in physical damage, and often the, like, big reduction in non-physical damage, which seems like together that should just be all damage forever. And so, like, I'm tanking hits left and right. And it's interesting, you know, but maybe I am not doing nearly as much damage as Luis is when they're hitting.
Speaking personally, I use both the Radigan and Marika's source seals, the things that give you +5 in every stat, but also cut your armor value in half each. So there was a period in which I was using both of those, and also had 30 vitality. So yeah, we are living in different worlds, my friend.
This is awesome. I'm so glad.
My margin for error is 6.
Okay. I want to kind of go back to the beginning of this DLC. How you get in, which is there's that big egg with a arm hanging out of it in Mog's arena. I was kind of surprised there was no cutscene where, like, the arm grabbed you and pulled you in. That's kind of like, even in Dark Souls 1, when you start the DLC, there's a big arm that comes out and grabs you and pulls you in. And it's like, you just kind of click on the egg and appear in the DLC. But then you are met with one of the most amazing skyboxes that I've ever seen, only to be matched by every other location in this game.
Pretty.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
We got a lot of feedback on the skybox. Specifically, Alex R said it's stunningly beautiful. The art direction, tone, absolute vibes are unmatched. Tommen.gif said immediately one of the most stunning environments I've ever seen in a game. Crater said, I've only played 20 minutes so far, and my thoughts are mostly limited to, holy shit, look at that skybox. What's going on there? Here's a question.
I want to know about the fabric. There's a lot of
Yeah.
draping fabric, and I don't know if they just like discovered the technology to drape fabric and they were like, put it everywhere, or if there's some sort of like deeper meaning to this drapery all over the place.
Ren, whenever we had a question about the lore in the Armored Core series, we would kind of just be like, do you know what's going on? Do
You
you?
shouldn't turn to me here.
Okay,
I don't-
that's fine.
Yeah, listen, I never learned. I know my own path. I know not what.
You're like,
what
I know
others are
my
doing."
story. That's all I need to know. This is my journey.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I know
so,
I'm married. That's like about the extent of what I know.
I know I'm married.
Oh yeah, that. Okay, thank you. Yes, my character does have a wife. Good reminder.
I have a few wives, and I'm adding a few more wives because the women in this DLC are so dang sexy. What the heck? Why is everybody in this DLC so hot? Mesmer's hot. Like, there's all these like lady knights all over the place that I'm like, oh no, come fight this boss with me.
yeah,
Like
those
everyone
guys in the pot.
is so hot.
Ooh, boy.
Okay, maybe not the pot. Okay, have you seen their legs though? The pot people legs?
Yeah.
They have incredible legs. Like I will give them that.
I actually, this is interesting because I was wondering in my current playthrough, I assume when you'll say you're married to Ronnie, you're getting like that crazy ending, right?
Yeah, 100%.
My character is locked in to the Frenzied Flame ending, which is like the craziest ending of the game. And like when you get it, they're like, you cannot turn back from this. Like, yes, Renata.
Wait, you know that there's one exception to that, right?
I know
Okay.
you can get
Okay,
it, but
I was just clarifying.
but it's like it really does feel it's like my character's eyes are like frenzied flame eyes, and every time I take a screenshot, I'm like, there's my character with the like flame behind their eyes. And I was wondering if it would, my guess is no, but I did have a little lurking wonder of like, is this gonna affect anything? Is anyone gonna be like, hey man, you look like you're ready to burn the world down or something? So far,
Yeah, it is a
no.
little
I
weird.
think so.
Because
Because also, I
current
think
path
they
doesn't affect
expect
it.
you to. I'm sorry. I cut you off. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think the idea is like it doesn't take place after the ending, right? Like kind of, right? Like they expect you to sort of play it in the middle,
Yeah.
or in the last third or whatever.
Yeah, and it's unclear how much does what happens in the Erdtree Shadow realm affect like the regular world? Are they just like are they like separate dimensions, or is
feel
this
like-
just like somewhere else in Elden Ring world?
Gameplay wise, they are probably totally separate. Although
Yeah.
there are people who reference like like the Greater Will and the Two Fingers, and like they know what's going on over there. But these people seem to be like the nice thing about this DLC is I feel like the story is so contained within the DLC that it almost makes it easier to understand compared to the base game. Like I find it very easy to follow along, and you're actively in the story, which is with Elden Ring, everything kind of already happened, and you're coming along afterwards. So that's what I appreciate about this DLC, but it is really awkward when you leave and like I go back to my roundtable hold, which is on fire, and people are like,
and,
"It's
like,
on fire!
everyone's
Like
dead."
we gotta do something," and I'm like, "I'm busy. I'm literally busy. Like I don't have time for you right now. Like I've got this whole other thing going on." So yeah, it is kind of weird going back and forth between them.
I have had that as well, especially like the finger maiden in the roundtable hold, just
Dead as hell.
completely dead, just
So
so
dead.
dead.
So
But, like,
dead.
You can
Couldn't be
still
more
talk to
dead.
her corpse.
So dead.
Oh my gosh.
So, Sarah, you said the story is very self-contained and easy to follow.
Yeah.
What do you think's going? I mean, because here's what I know. Mikola has been making a pilgrimage through and has been cutting off parts of
Just having a rough go of it.
his body. And then everyone else is kind of like a big fan. Or just like feels some sort of way, they're kind of like going on the Mikola tour.
I've been calling them Mikola Stans and Mikola Simps as I go through the DLC.
Yeah.
They're sort of like, you come in and there's been this like holy war waged on the horn set by Mesmer. And he's just like continuously just sort of like a dictator, and he's just like burning this entire world down. And then Mikola, I'm unclear about what he's doing there. He just went there and he's on his pilgrimage. But what you have to remember from the original game, from the first one, is Mikola has the power to essentially get people to like him. Like they speculate that he has this like charming ability of a god. So he is very like Christ-like in this pilgrimage that you're following him on. And then there's a bunch of people who have sort of been like, who feel like that their life's goal is to just follow Mikola and follow in his footsteps. So yeah, we have a few things at play. We have the Hornset, who are like the original denizens of the Shadow Realm, and then you have Mesmer's people, who were brought there and they live there. And then you also have Mikola and his people right now. So those are the three that I've been sort of dealing with throughout the DLC. And seeing, I'm interested to see where they all end up in the end. I don't know if this is a choose a side, choose no sides, kind of like all sides bad. So that's what I'm trying to figure out now in my playthrough.
Are those just kind of shadow people that are like the most common enemy? Are those like the original residents? Is that your take? Because they're everywhere.
My take is that they were the people who were killed when Mesmer came and like murdered everybody, right? That's
Gotcha.
what I think the gravestones are. That's what I think the shadow people are. That's what I think they're supposed to be.
Well, sorry, just to clarify, the Hornsent are the people who were there originally, and then right. So I mean, this is something that Elden Ring has like did also with the Shifra River Valley, in terms of like there being an area that where there was like an attempt at like what is effectively like an imperial endeavor. Like that is what like the vibe I have been getting from Erdtree is failed imperial project. Or partially aborted like imperial project, which is to say that like, you know, still in power, but like no longer technically like connected to like the broader state. And like that empire now in like great decline. That has been at least my read.
Which is there any game studio that does Empire in Decline better than FromSoftware? That is just the vibe of every Dark Souls and Elden Ring.
It really
game
feels
at this point.
like when you show up, it feels like disaster tourism. You know, when like people go to like war-torn countries or countries that have just like experienced great disaster, and they're like, everything's so cheap now. That's how I feel as the Tarnished. I'm like, everything's so cheap here.
I'm like, wow,
so much
big
to explore.
gravestone. I love it.
It's like Donald Glover walking into with pizza in that episode of Community, you know, and everything's just like on fire. And he's like, oh, guess I'll level up my sword.
Christian Jimenez from the community says, really loving the art direction of the DLC. Many shades of all their previous games. Dark Souls 2 and 3 with a color palettes, Bloodborne-esque environments and vibes, Sekiro areas with popping color like the Cerulean Coast and autumn-soaked forests. Maybe their best DLC ever. I have really been getting that, like, it really feels like they're referencing themselves a lot in this DLC in like fun, not like overt ways, but just kind of like visual motifs. I mean, like did y'all make it to the Abyss? Did you get to like the horror section of this game?
Which horror section?
I was playing in the flower
referring
field.
to?
Okay, Jacob, that's where I went. I went to the flower field first.
Can you give me a
Well, that
cardinal
sounds
direction?
lovely. Kind of south, like south and low. You have to take a coffin there.
Oh, I haven't done that. I've not done that.
Where's the coffin? No, I haven't done that.
Okay, so this is
Oh, I've heard of the coffin. I've found someone who said you got to take a ride in a coffin, and I said, buddy, I'm gonna keep walking.
no, this was one of, I mean, it's like, and these are the experiences that Elden Ring is made of, but it was one of my favorite moments, and someone, Wes F, wrote basically my experience, which is, I'm not sure if this is the only way to stumble across the Abyss section, but I personally found it by going down a random ladder in the Shadow Keep, and then, this is the part they exclude, there is a hidden wall that when I walked up to it, there was a note that said hidden wall ahead, and it had 4 upvotes, which, like, there are signs that say hidden wall ahead that have 1,000 upvotes that are just a wall that has nothing hidden behind them. But this one, which was legit, had like nothing, but they were right. There was a hidden wall behind this hidden ladder. And then you ride a coffin down a waterfall, and then you go through another cave section, and then you come out into the Abyss, which is a giant section of the map, including the almost exactly the Bloodborne enemies that make you go insane when you look at them. Like, just
Interesting.
like the winter lanterns are in this game.
I do feel like a lot of the areas in this DLC are harder to get to than the main game because I had to I had to run down a beach for a really long time before I got to a new area. Like it's not like hard to navigate, but you do have to explore.
They're doing a very different style of world design, right? Like the base game's world design was like. I've been thinking about this a lot, given that I made a 30-minute long video essay about the base game's map. Which, by the way, let me just say, best called shot of my fucking life. Best called shot of my life. The DLC begins. A person walks up to you and says, "Would you like to take a look at this hand-drawn map that I made for you?"
Oh my god!
And compare it to the map that you have.
And you can't zoom in on it. It also looks like a child drew it, and there's no topography whatsoever.
Yeah, you can't. It's remarkable. It's real good. And then I was having a conversation with, formerly Waypoint, formerly Possibility Space, Austin Walker, about the DLC. And like he was saying like, oh yeah, he was just started like listing off areas that he had been to, just like totally different regions of the map. Because at that point, so it's worth noting that I had to that point only been like slamming my head against the dancing dragon. I had not like started like exploring the world broadly yet. But since then, like have realized that like, yeah, the world design is completely different and that like you are supposed to be finding like major areas every like 30 to 40 minutes by like doing things that do not feel like they. Oh God, what was the. There's been multiple sections where I have like torrent platformed my way into like an entire region that like I was not supposed to be in yet. And the game is just like really vibing with that. And like, again, also its sightline design is just better. Like the degree to which you are really just being like, okay, cool. Let me look at this like other like part of this map. And then like, I know I'm going to be over there in like 45 minutes or whatever. Has been a lot stronger in the DLC.
From in general is so good at making you feel like you've found a path exclusively. Like, surely no one noticed this weird roof over here. And then you were like, you end up in a section that's like, no, this is like mainline content. And I'm always impressed by that. And I think you're right. I think it is just like sightline. I think they're just like, I know people like to talk about the combat and the visual direction, but like, I think their level design is like unmatched. Like I think that's where they're strongest. And that's what I love about the game. I just love exploring. Like clearly I don't know. I do feel like I play it wrong, but I just get so engrossed in walking around and feeling like I'm lost and then suddenly coming across like where I'm supposed to be and I don't even know how they pushed me there, but it's just so good.
Yeah. Also, to briefly return to what Jacob was saying a minute ago, the game is hyper-referential with like its areas, like in terms of like the coffin, like being how you access the abyss. Like there is, there's a coffin that you use to access the Astel, the star,
right. It's on
boss.
The Ronnie thing, but also,
Yes.
I mean, even earlier, it's like in Dark Souls. To join the Grave Lords, you got to lay down in a coffin and like.
And then there's the
zoom
Dark
down
Souls 2
somewhere.
gender coffin. Never,
forget.
no one should ever forget the Dark Souls 2 gender coffin. A thing that has been rattling around in the back of my head as like a design decision for I think the last like 10 years. Just like one of the all-time weird choices in a video game.
I remember climbing in that thing and not understanding what was happening and just like climbing into it like 3 or 4 times and being like, oh, what's going
happened
on?
to me when I started Erdtree.
As I saw the TV Glow referencing the Dark Souls 2 gender coffin.
Stupid.
One of my favorite things about the original game was how useful the map was in a really interesting and different way. Where usually in your Far Cries, in whatever, you have like a perfectly detailed map that just will highlight bandit camp over here. And in Elden Ring, you have a map that's like illustrated and you could see like a settlement or a, like a cave on the map that would be drawn, but it wouldn't be marked. And so you would just have to look really closely at the map and be like, oh, that looks interesting. I should go to there. And what is so impressive about this DLC is that like that remains, but is so like there is literally nothing. There is nowhere on the map that is not like
Something.
some clue to some area where it's like you'll be, it's like you're exploring a meadow and you're in the section that you're on, and then you'll see on the map something that like looks like it's lower in just like a tiny little like cutout, and you're like, what's that? And then like hours later you'll get there and that will be a whole separate area, and when you look at the map you can then realize like, oh yeah, that was indicated here, but it's so dense and there's so much of it that it is like, even if you're directly looking at something, it feels like finding it is still a surprise. Lazy Bob said, I found this new map to be incredibly dense, or incredible due to how densely packed and layered it is. There's a number of times I've stumbled on large new sections that have invoked a similar sense of wonder as initially coming across Shifra River. The one minor dungeon that unexpectedly has an exit at its end leading to the path towards the menacing jagged peak in one direction, or further exploration to the south, has been my favorite so far.
Yeah, a lot of these places, it feels like you do have to like go through a dungeon. There's a lot of like going under things, going over things. Like there feels like there's more vertical layers in this as well, like from the base game. Like I look at the map and I'm like, oh, I'm actually under this peak. I'm not on top of it. And
Yeah.
so I think that just, it really rewards, like my general style of gameplay is go everywhere except where I'm supposed to go. And like so far that has been well rewarded. I will say I did accidentally trigger some story stuff by going too far. Which sort of like put me in like a tight spot for one of the boss fights. But so it's like I'm trying to like go back and kind of like clean up the areas I've already been in and try to like keep the NPCs with me the entire time, because they kind of
that's
travel through the
interesting.
game with you. So I've been like going back and like making sure that I pick them up and then move them to the next location. A lot of bosses have like the NPC assistants, which I just think it has been it has been a perfect. It's the NPCs I think are better woven into this story, because I took one of the NPCs into the Divine Beast, like Dancing Lion boss. And then when I came out with her, like after defeating it, she had totally new dialogue. And totally new lore that like, I don't know if you would have gotten if you didn't fight with her. Like she gave me her backstory and I was like, oh my God, like, are we best friends now? Like what? And I've noticed that with a few of the other NPCs too. So do not disregard the NPCs in this game.
There's that guy very early on who's like, hey, tell me when you find a new Cross of Mikola, because I'm like interested in those. I don't know where that guy is. I found like 6 new ones, and he will be so psyched when I eventually find him.
Normally,
but like,
back where you found him originally, but at one point in the game, he will move to the Shadow Keep.
Okay, that might.
If
be
you hit that
where he
major
is.
story point, he's relocated to the Shadow Keep.
Jesse E said, love exploring the open world, but I find myself constantly getting overwhelmed. Everything is so densely packed, and the map doesn't do a great job of telling me if something is higher or lower. 2 sites of grace will appear right next to each other, but one may be way lower than the other. That is true, where you have to remember, like, okay, this one is underground, and this one is, it's like often their names gesture at it, but it is... I've definitely had times where I'm like, I'm teleporting over here. Wait, no, that's not the one. I gotta go over here.
Sarah, what do you mean by like you take the NPCs with you? Like, what do you mean?
There's
by
some NPCs that if you don't interact with them, they won't show up at the boss door to aid you or like help you.
Okay.
So it's like I've been trying to do my due diligence, like make sure I'm like on good relationship with everyone. Because I've been really needing that extra help from the NPCs.
Oh, yeah,
They really have been supporting me. But yeah, I've been trying to make sure that I've like exhausted all of their dialogue in their locations before they move on to the next location.
Okay. Yeah, I'm talking to everyone as much as possible. So I guess I'm sort of doing the same thing by accident, kind of. Okay. I had one. Maybe I don't know. This feels atypical, but. There was against forgive me for not knowing the name, but the guy that I think a lot of us hit a wall on, who the snake guy, right? Like his the partner that
I
I
assume
could,
you're talking about Mesmer, which I don't think some of us have hit yet.
I haven't
but...
found yet.
Okay, but the partner that I could call in there is like in the battlefield. as opposed to being right outside the door. Did I just
I've noticed that. No, I've noticed that too.
There are a couple that this happens from time to time in the Souls games. Like those ones are counted differently in terms of like NPC summoning. So if they're within the boss room, then they also don't count towards adjustments to boss health. So like that NPC can be summoned
that's like
without
Radahn
like
was
spiking.
like
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
right.
okay.
Yeah,
That
Radahn
makes
was just so
sense.
unique though that I didn't really.
Right. I mean,
but,
look,
yeah,
for old heads, when you're fighting, what is the Abyss guy in the Artorias DLC?
Manus.
Manus? Okay.
Manus of the Abyss.
Manus, you can summon Sif in the fight, which is the coolest thing in the world. Let's talk about the balancing, and I want to start by reading two things. From Jesse R. The balancing is perfect. They had 2 years and knew the players coming in would be all over the charts, yet somehow the difficulty is scaled precisely to where you're at. I played on day 1 with a friend on New Game Plus 7, nearly 200 levels higher than me, another bud who rolled a fresh character and beeline straight to the DLC. Somehow we all found it equally challenging. Then, from Joran, the balancing is awful. I got to level 200 in the base game, was able to steamroll everything except the 2 hidden bosses. Now in this DLC, I'm getting 1 or 2 shot by everything. Things hit so much harder than they need to in every area I've been. Oddly, the bosses seem mostly fine. They hit like trucks, but it's expected. The tiny crawling hand that knocked me off Torrent and then did 1600 damage in a single attack? That's just bad design.
You gotta get your Skidoo fragments. You have to, like, you have to.
Yeah, it is. I think that I am on the side of this is fairly brilliant, where I was wondering just like how, because you have to enter this DLC near end game, and because near end game could have a range of 80 levels, if not more, like depending on who's playing it. I was really wondering kind of like what they were going to do, and I feel like the Skidoo tree fragments are so they are so meaningful in their stat adjustments that like the difference between 150 level character and 180 level character is not that huge in terms of damage scaling, but like the difference between 1 Skidoo tree fragment and like 6 is enormous. You're doing like twice as much damage.
It's about 4% per level. So it's 4% additional damage and then 2% additional defense per Shadow Tree Blessing level up to, I believe, 20. So I believe it's 80% additional damage at the end and 40% additional defense by the end game, which like is also like, this is the DLC's progression system. Like if you are not engaging with the Shadow Tree fragments, then you are simply not engaging with the DLC as designed, which is a problem because like I do think that like they don't. Elden Ring encourages it. By the end of Elden Ring, players are incentivized to play the game in a certain way because thanks to Crumbling Farm Azula and a couple of other areas that are like pretty linear. One, pretty linear, and two, as was pointed out by, I think this was also pointed out by Austin, it's a long ass game. And so by the end, like the final third, like people are just like literally running through like areas to like get to bosses to just like finish the game, which I think is like a near universal experience with a game this long, right? And so like that is the mode that like the vast majority of the player base is coming into the DLC primed to play with. And so that is like directly counter to what this DLC wants you to do, which is to return to the thing that I kind of argue that the base game is all about, which is like you get power in Elden Ring in a way that is like distinct from other Souls games through the not exploration, but like control over space. Right? Like it is a game about like conquering, not like literally conquering areas of the map and like taking control over various spaces, and like that is the way through which like you progress. Like that is how you find new weapons, that is how you find new items, and like that is what the DLC is like trying to get players to do, and is basically decided that like, great, level ups don't matter. Like from a design perspective, leveling is boring. It's not particularly relevant at this stage, that like once we know players have like fully built their characters, like it's just not a relevant tool in our design toolkit. And like, I really respect the decision to like throw like what is effectively an essential part of your series identity completely out the window in favor of like recommitting to like kind of like the series like base values as opposed to like a core central mechanic.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think because scaling slows down so much from level, when it's like all of my weapons that I'm using are maximum level, you know, like my faith or whatever is at like 50, and there's not much that's going much higher than that. I think it would, yeah, you'd be like, well, why am I exploring? I don't want to do any of this. And in fact, and I don't want to be like negative on this comment, but Steve Bellegarde said, I think the new blessing system is my biggest disappointment. With the new area being so punishing right from the start, I am now mainly exploring just to seek the fragments, feeling stressed that if I don't have enough, I cannot keep progressing. I like the more open progression of the main game, where there were seemingly endless opportunities to grow strong just from exploration. Which I think is interesting, because it's like you did get souls from everything, and you only get the skidoo tree fragments from specific things. But in my experience, they are kind of everywhere, where it's like I do a dungeon and there's one at the end, or like I found a secret area and there's a hippo there and I can kill the hippo and the hippo gives me a fragment or whatever. So I am still feeling very rewarded for exploration, but it is a big swing to be like levels are basically done. You're done leveling.
I mean, yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, I just get so excited when I find them now. Yeah. Especially if I'm just like in the middle of nowhere and it's like, or I beat some random dude and it's like, oh God, he had a skidoo tree? That's wild.
Jared said, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
I feel like if I wasn't using like summons, if I wasn't using the things that the game gave to me, and if I was just going in with one build, I could see this game being a lot more for like the DLC being frustrating with the bosses, for sure. I feel like this DLC specifically wants you to experiment more. Like, I've never been so pushed to like use items, like use different weapons, like try different strategies before. Like in the original game, I had my build, I built it, and I was like, we're going to the end with this. But the DLC, I'm like, okay, this isn't working. I find like I need to adjust more. I need to look at other weapons. I need to look at other, like I need to switch up my build and look. So it's like I've been really appreciating that. But I can see where like if you're just, I don't know, if you're being sweaty about it, it could be a little frustrating.
Yeah, Jared P. on the positive side said, I think the skidoo tree fragment system, it will be funny if at some point they decide that it's pronounced shadow tree, and then we'll just have this
It sounds a lot cooler, but
Jeff N.
The reference is what it is.
Jeff N. said, yes, I know they're called skidoo tree fragments, but in my head all I can see is Poe saying skadoosh every time I pick one up. Jared P. said,
Jacob, I appreciate that we started this deepest dive by saying, well, actually it turns out it's shadow tree. Anyway, so you got to pick up skidoo tree.
Skidoo! Jared says they feel very Nintendo to have these level up items be the most important aspect of progressing your character. Jeff said that they feel it's just bad game design. What I appreciated most about Elden Ring was how FromSoft wasn't afraid of players missing out on stuff. Now it feels like they're forcing players to look up guides just to get these skadoosh fragments. Yeah. I haven't found that. I haven't looked at a guide yet, but
I will say, speaking as someone who made a whole video about how Elden Ring's like structurally incentivizes players to search up guides, I do actually agree that like there are tons of structural incentives for like players to rely on guides here, which is like it's a double-edged sword, because like that's kind of a series standard, right? Is to rely on the community for support. The problem is that like as that community support is increasingly industrialized, is increasingly like institutionalized, that no longer becomes like a communal like knowledge searching mission and instead becomes the work of like guides writers being run into the ground.
Let me read the ESPN AI generated all skidoo tree list Elden Ring.
Right, exactly. Which that's the problem is like a lot of people are going to be Googling and finding exactly that. I know that, Jacob, because I found exactly that AI generated piece that you are talking about as the #1 Google result.
And that was just a guess.
Like, yeah, dude, like, not to say I was right, but I was right. Never been wrong once in my life. However, like I do agree that like there is some like weird incentivization going on in terms of like relying on guides, because like again there is shit that like I know that I have missed, and like speaking as someone who like slammed her head against Rolana and like the dancing lion without enough Shadow Tree like blessings or whatever, like I've been saying it the whole time. I'll have it on the record that if you hear from minute one,
never wrong once,
never wrong once in my life. Historical genius. Stupid. Dumb joke.
Did you guys mostly play Elden Ring pre-release? Like I know that's like a sort of an advantageous position, you know.
I played about 35 hours for my initial like review / summary for Waypoint that I did initially.
I finished it post-release, but I was certainly playing pre.
Because I beat Radon pre-nerf shit going on here. Oh, I beat Radon before the nerf.
No, I but I just because of the circumstances, I probably played like 80% of Elden Ring pre-release without guides, and even this I played a fair bit pre-release, to the point where like it wasn't until like last night I was playing that I started seeing like messages on the ground, and I was like, oh right, this is like a primary part of this game. Like I forgot, you know.
But
I'm also like fine missing stuff, like, but I think that's just a player preference, you know. I prefer getting lost, you know? I've
been so appreciative of the messages, especially in this first playthrough where it feels like everyone is figuring it out together, where it's like sometimes there are like hidden wall here and I hit it and it's a hidden wall and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, and sometimes a million times there's just a cliff and it says try jumping, and of course if you jump off you die.
But sometimes you do jump off a cliff and you don't die, and I wish we could just be more specific on that, FromSoft, because it's really messing with me mentally.
There are, and I think this was the case in the main game, but you can see specifically FromSoft left messages because they look more like they're written on like a stone that's sticking out of the ground. And so sometimes there's one of those that says like try bravery when you're near like a cliff that you have to jump off, and it's like, okay, I think that's legit. Maybe my favorite was and Tommy Ostrenga wrote in about like being reminded of how funny the game is and how funny like the messages can be. One of my favorites was I was in some dungeon and there was a message and it said like try up, which it often says if there's like an enemy clinging to the wall. And so I like was looking up and walked forward and the stairs below me crumbled under my feet and I like fell to the ground, and it like it got me so good. It really it does make me laugh constantly.
Yeah, I saw one where it's like I was exploring a dungeon and I went to like an outcrop where you could kind of see down and it looked like you could jump, and there was a message. And the message just said, first off, try thinking. And I was like, first of all, how dare you? Second of all, you are correct. I should not jump down there.
I do want to, and I won't spend too much time on it if y'all haven't got there, but in this Abyss section, it becomes a horror game. And part of the way that it becomes a horror game is there are a bunch of messages that are left by FromSoft that are just like turn back, and then there's like don't let it see you, and it is really cool and eerie to be finding those.
That's it. I'm staying in the flower meadow. I like how you went to the one place which was probably the hardest to find, because I saved the Shadow Keep for last. Like you can go around the bosses. So like I went around Renala, and then you can go around a little bit Mesmer too. Right? So I've been like up and down the coast, sort of like the East Coast all the time. Not as scary, I want to say. Very pleasant, actually. Except for the giant fingers. Those are a little weird. But disregarding that, very pleasant.
Have you found the finger ruins?
Yeah.
That
And
was
I said, I hope they explain this finger thing.
nope. That's actually something I look forward to figuring out for the next playthrough is the Finger Ruins of Rio, one of my favorite named places. And there's a place where there are a bunch of fingers in like a triangle, and there's like a thing hanging down. And I'm like, surely I can do something with this. And I couldn't figure out what. And there was a message that said like, try Church North. So I was like, okay. And I haven't found whatever the hell that is yet. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I will say, when I made it there and I didn't have like the correct thing to go through it, I was like, wow, came all the way down here for nothing. Guess I'll just leave and come back. But yeah, that's a solid message. So I hope, because they've kind of been explaining like the pot people, like how those came to be, which is horrifying. And I hope they've been doing a good job sort of like wrapping up any like overlying questions that I feel like people have had coming from the main game. So I hope we address this whole finger thing. Like, why the fingers? If the DLC does not address the question, why the fingers, I will never be able to sleep soundly.
I don't think it's going to. I think we
Why
might
the
fight like a
fingers?
big finger at one point.
Please, I need to know.
It's the explanation is just a middle finger to the player. basically,
Yeah.
Right.
Jacob M said, I love/am horrified that in one of the early dungeons you discover what is inside the living pots. When the pot boys try to dive on you and break open their pots and their gelatinous, squishy, grotesque, yet kind of cute bodies are revealed, you're reminded that absolutely nobody does uncomfortably horrifying like FromSoftware. Now, I did want to say, I saw like a thread on Twitter today that was explaining that like the flesh pots are actually
there's two
not.
kinds. There's two kinds of pot guy. There's two kinds of pot guy. There's the pot guy who are the burial jar pot guys, who are the pot guys we know and love, and then there are the pot guys who are worshiping some other unrelated pot deity. They just happen to hang out in vaguely the same places. I think it's like there are two pot factions who hang out together.
What's interesting is like the pot people in this DLC, it's like hinted that they're being put in the pot against their wills.
Yeah, it's a punishment.
Versus the pot people in the main thing are the remains of like dead soldiers in battle. So it's like, are they just trying to recreate the pots on the lands between, and they're just going about it in a really aggressive way by just forcing people? What's the benefit of being in a pot? Like, I need to know.
It's I mean, it is funny that they have established these separate fictions. Reed Harry said, did anyone else get stuck in a jar in the jar cave? I got attacked by one of the jar humans, and my character glitched inside of a jar. I couldn't get my character out of the jar no matter how hard I tried. I found a message that said, I want to go home. Oh, I want to go home. So I can't be the only one.
That's funny. Yeah, when you said that, I was like, I didn't know you could get stuck in a pod. I guess you're not really supposed to.
No, but it's very funny. I do think, and this is a comment from Jacob FC that I agree with. It's a lot more exciting to find side dungeons now.
They're better. They're just better.
Yeah,
they got better at them.
You know, the second half of the main game, I sometimes felt fatigued when I would come across one. Not so in the DLC. I've been really impressed with how unique they feel. They're just like, there are fewer of them. They are way more interesting. They're not all filled with the same little gargoyle enemies. And even when they are filled with the gargoyle enemies, there are like really fun twists on them. Did y'all find that one that was like the light dark dungeon where you were like turning the lights on, and then at some point there's a
Jacob, where are you going?
I haven't found Mesmer yet.
Because I went all around the map and I was like, ain't no way someone's been somewhere I haven't been yet. But here you are.
there's this thing. It truly almost feels. It feels almost Nintendo-esque in that you're turning on lights, and then there's this giant goblin with like a cannon head who's shooting at you, and eventually you can like lower a platform so you can attack him. It's awesome.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a totally different like style of level design than they have done really since like, I don't know if they've done the style of level design since like maybe some parts of Demon Souls, maybe, but like as far back as like the Kingsfield games is you have to go to like find FromSoft doing like this level of like weird gimmicky areas
Yeah.
and theming, because like there are gimmick areas in terms of like themed poison swamps, but you will not come across an area that has like a bespoke puzzle mechanic in many like of the recent FromSoft games at the very least. And so like seeing what is, I think I rightly pointed out, as like Zelda, like I think Zelda's a good comparison point here, but like older school level and dungeon design like showing up in like I think really cool ways. I mean like I assume that y'all have found the forges.
I found one of them.
So I don't know.
With the
lava
guys who
ones?
have like the jewel in their back.
Yeah, the guys with the jewel in the back. Yeah, there's a couple of forges that have like basically like sacred weapons, and then like or like special like items, and then like special smithing stones, and like those areas do not even have bosses. They are dungeons without
Yeah.
bosses that instead just like rely on having
Which
a
I
cool
kind of
central puzzle
like.
mechanic, and like
Yeah.
it is doing something I think really similar to what the Shifa River Valley was doing in the base game in terms of creating like bespoke challenges for unique areas that have to be approached in like fundamentally different ways. I think that like one of my biggest frustrations with Elden Ring broadly is that like I don't think the base game does that enough in terms of like asking you to approach different areas and situations differently. The Shifa River Valley being a major exception because like the first time you go through that area, you're getting pinged by snipers until you like actually like take the time to learn enemy placements, to sneak your way through and like slowly put together like an understanding of that area and a unique gameplay approach to like tackle it. That is every single area I have encountered in Erdtree so far, or at the very least the vast majority of them, if not every. It is just like it is home run after home run in terms of like how do you make each area feel in terms of like the way that it flows from a level design perspective, unique from one another. I mean, like I was in awe of the Shadow Keep when I realized that level's like central mechanic, and like again to talk about like the self-referential stuff again, like they are pulling every single tool out of their design toolkit and every single tool out of everyone else's design toolkits at the same time. It's really impressive.
It's like I found 2 different exits out of the Shadow Keep that led to enormous areas, and neither of them had Mesmer in them. Like they were both. I was like, well, this must be the main path, and
I like
was
how you
there
keep
for like
opening doors.
6 hours. Yeah.
You're like, Mesmer, are you? Oh, nope, it's another area of the game.
Mr. Buttons said after several
real
hours
quick,
of
Shadow
playing.
Keep is the area with the big statues hanging from the ceiling. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Cool.
Mr. Buttons said after several hours of playing.
Wait, there are statues hanging from the ceiling in the Shadow Keep?
Like
It's called,
like
what
the
is it called? The specimen room.
Because like you run up a
Maybe
guy's
they're not
feet,
statues,
and
yeah.
it's like you're like there's a guy hanging from the ceiling, and you like jump on his legs and like.
Did you go in
run
the
up
front
and-
door or the side door?
I wish I could. I mean, I didn't go in the front door. I don't think I went in the front door. I don't
When
think
you
I went in
if
the
you went in
front.
the side door, was there a bunch of water?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so you
100%.
went in the side door.
Yeah, I played Dark Souls 1 again. I quickly played Dark Souls 1 again, and then I went. Now I'm fighting a big tree. That's
have
actually
no
where
idea.
I left off. Is fighting
Are you
the
talking
big
about
tree
like
in
the
the
flooded
basement.
city?
Yeah, that's also
You
part
can
of
get
the
in
Shadow
from
Keep.
there. I couldn't find. I like
I
hit a
haven't been
wall.
there at all.
You can go from that area to the Shadow Keep and vice
Yeah,
versa.
Wow.
I'm
okay,
in that
cool.
part. Wait, Jacob, you haven't been to the part where you have to drain the water like it's Dark Souls 1?
No, this guy's
No.
in the horror game. He went down a
The
ladder in
horror
the
game.
same building.
No,
Jacob went
I
down
went
a
down
ladder.
a ladder. I went down a ladder in the Shadow Keep, and I found a big tree.
Okay.
I
I found
I
a
couldn't
big
figure
tree
out how
in
to
the
drain
basement
that
under the
area.
water.
This
Like
is every version of Erdtree is personalized. We're literally not
Yeah.
playing the same game.
It's like the statues hanging from the ceiling were I particularly like that area because like I went to an aquarium after I started playing and they had like a big, whale hanging from the ceiling and I was like, I'm here. I'm in Elden Ring, baby. Gotta beat up these sea otters.
Mr. Buttons said, after several hours of playing, I think the Shadow Keep might be the best dungeon FromSoft has ever created. Between its considerable size and unique rooms, I've spent a lot of time uncovering its secrets, but my favorite aspect of the dungeon is how it serves as a kind of nerve center for the DLC. Its numerous paths continue to surprise me as I find myself exploring, finding an exit, realizing it is pointing me to a whole separate section of the DLC's massive map. I loved it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Where did
Someone-
y'all go first? Did we all fight the dancing lion? Was that, I mean, I found the
did,
Black
yeah.
Jail Knight. I got my little butt kicked. I left, and then I went to the dancing lion place, and
Which
that was like the
is
first thing I did.
West,
It's
right? I think.
Yeah, it's through.
Okay.
There's like a
North-
giant
northwest.
door in a cliff right when you kind of start playing, and
Right.
that's you kind of hang a left and you go through there.
Yeah, I mean, I do loosely follow the points, the grace points. You know, will give you a little bit of a clue.
Sure,
Of,
yeah.
head in this direction. So I think you kind of that. Yeah. So what you guys had the name for it. It was like the dancing dragon. Is that what you
Yeah,
called it?
dancing lion.
Dancing lion. Thank you. Like that was my first sort of skill check boss. I don't know if everyone else was in the same boat.
I also went to that area. I mean, I was one of the people who like beelined right for one of the legacy dungeons and got my ass kicked because I didn't have enough like Shadow Tree blessings and like fought my way to that boss and just like kept getting slammed over and over again. And so it was after I had that conversation with Austin that I like re-evaluated my game plan. And then Rolana was the first boss I actually took out. Mostly because she can be parried. And if a boss can be parried, then I can brute force my way through it. Even if like
That's a very different definition of brute force than I have. Where my brute force is like if I can jump attack it 12 times
Yeah,
while
I don't
eating
know.
its damage.
I don't know what this parry is. Like the game is slowly chipping away my resistance to shields and parrying in general. This DLC, because in the main game, I feel like you could just go pure strength, double fist any weapon, and you're good to go. But this game, it's like I'm like parrying. You want me to parry? You want me to get a shield? Who do you think I am?
So just have a parrying dagger. Have a parrying like that's what I was doing for a little bit was having an offhand. That's what I did in. Oh God, which one was that? That was I think Dark Souls 3. I had an offhand parrying dagger.
Well, because I feel like Sarah, it's funny that you're like I don't want a shield because I have a shield all the time and I never parry because shields are easy. You don't have to roll. You can just block it. And then also I was glad that I replayed Dark Souls or Elden Ring because I had forgot about this mechanic. But like the guard counter where you get hit on your shield and then you can press heavy attack and you just do a nice little slam down that does a lot of poise damage is still super useful in this DLC. And like I think if you're having a tough time, obviously find the Skadoo fragments, but like if you're not using a shield, you know, you still got to roll a little bit, but like you can tank a lot of damage with that.
Yeah, the whole DLC really feels like shield propaganda to me, like shield and parry propaganda, because like I have two hands and a sword belongs in each of them, in my opinion. Like
Same.
when it comes to these games, this is just shield propaganda.
Well, again, it feels like they're using every tool in their toolkit again in a way that like they have not done because like they previously took shields out with Sekiro, and then
Bloodborne.
not Sekiro, Sekiro and Bloodborne, right? They've removed shields 2 times. They were like, well, we got to go back to the drawing board again, and I actually think that like this time is like. This is the win with
serious.
shields in terms
They're
of like
serious.
they designed shields that successfully no longer engender passivity. Like that is what it feels like they have done over the course of like several years of iteration, culminating in this DLC, which I think it's really cool. I have never been a shields girly, but I was using a shield at least for like the first little bit, and like now I'm only using. I don't use a shield to block. That is just a parry button for me. Otherwise, it is dodging.
Look, I'm fine with engendering passivity. That is not a problem that I have.
Oh, the other thing I was going to note is that the enemy variety is better built for using a shield than the rest of the game, or at the very least being able to parry, because the amount of parryable enemies compared to the base game is like ridiculous. Because there's enough humanoid enemies or enough enemies that like wield human-like implements that like. You can they basically have made it so like most bosses can be parried, most enemies can be parried, and so like they have basically given that tool back to the player after like years of being like no, only monster bosses. Y'all parried Gwyn too many times. We saw too many clips of y'all parrying Gwyn.
Sometimes I feel like this DLC is a punishment for us specifically, because when I went to the Divine Beast, I noticed that it had like a hoarfrost stomp. And I was like, is this because we all like abused hoarfrost? Like it does like it has its own special hoarfrost. I'm like, is this because like we all like made fun of it? And then if you remember from the main Elden Ring game, those piles of circular rocks that were around jails that would kind of vibrate and explode, I stumbled upon a dungeon of those that laser you unendingly without end. And there's not enough time between lasers to even drink a flask. And I'm like, is this revenge? What? And I feel like they gave us R'Lana because everybody made fun of Renala. And they were like, Renala easy as boss. And they said, oh, you want to she's got 2 moons and she's going to throw them at you. Okay? Like, I feel like, is this a punishment? Sometimes I feel when I play this game.
They are referencing themselves for sure. I was wondering, there's in the dungeon that ends with the dancing lion, there's Fire Knight Quillen, which I was like, is this a Quelaag reference?
I hate that. I hate that guy.
My least favorite enemies in any FromSoft game are not, I'm not saying humanoid bosses. I'm saying like enemies that have the same moveset as a player.
Jacob,
I always hate fighting.
Are you specifically talking about the one knight with the great sword that is in? Let me check the map real quick for this DLC. Are you Jacob? Are you specifically beefing with the guy in Castle Ensis? Are you specifically beefing with the guy with the great sword in Castle Ensis?
But it's just like any of them where they can kind of roll like you can. I'm just like, I hate this guy. I wanna be able to,
in the jails and like even, you know, like the Castle Ensis guy, I feel like they've really, when I saw that guy in the black jail pull out an empty flask and try to drink it, I was like, you mock me. And he rolls through every single one of my attacks and I'm like, is this how, because it was like looking in a mirror and I didn't like what I saw.
Yeah, it's how every boss feels
like
about
I was
you.
like, are you serious?
I do want to talk just a little about how good, and it's like if we start talking about how good the designs were, we'd be here all day. But that dancing lion, the idea of, I kind of don't even know what I'm looking at. It looks like 2 guys in a horse costume, you know, that like, and there's this lion head that's being held closed like by their hand, and it has like human teeth behind the lion face.
Yeah, it's a dancing lion. It is literally just some people in a dancing lion. The things that exist in flesh world, in our real flesh world, they're just doing that.
I'm not familiar with. Wait, what is a
You're thinking like Chinese dancing lion? You've seen them before. They come around Chinese New Year.
Oh, okay.
It's 2 guys. They like lift each other up.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
This is a real world thing that is just being
when
adapted.
that thing like snaps its jaws, I peed my pants every time it looked at me and then went like clack clack because I knew it was gonna try to eat me. Like it was terrifying.
Well, my favorite is then, and also what I wrote all caps in my notes, golden hippopotamus, when I like ran across that. But when it just opens its jaws and runs at you, and I'm doing like a
Why is everything trying to eat
run
us?
away. Ren, is this something that you like
first...
went in the side door so you didn't find the golden hippopotamus?
Yeah, this is the first boss of Shadowkeep when you go in the front door.
Because there are also hippopotamuses in other.
I don't know what y'all are talking about. That's none of my business. Like I don't know about any.
That's for front door people only. Like we're doing a side door situation.
How did y'all like? How long were you fighting the dancing lion? Ren, you said you got there and were getting messed with and had to go back and do other stuff. For me, it was pretty quick. I'm not using the mimic tier, not because I think it's cheating, but just because I like the other ones. But Black Knife Tish from the main game is so good, maybe my favorite summon. And so me and him were just kind of jumping around and fighting him. And I think I got it after 4 or 5
Did you
attempts.
Summon the story NPC? Redmane Freya? Freya
think
Redmane?
I did a couple
I
times,
did,
and then
yeah.
I didn't a couple other times, and I don't remember when I beat it. Because like it does get more health if you summon, but I think I probably
She was just she
had
just
her
like
summoned.
tanked the entire thing for me. She said, "I will die for you," and I said, "Thank you." If you summon, like, I find that the story NPCs are really well matched for the bosses you can use them for in most cases. But yeah, I did the same thing. I summoned the story NPC. I also had Black Knife Tish, and I think I only had to try a few times.
It wasn't too bad. It was probably like 7 tries for me, which is like pretty low for me. And I think, and actually now that I think about it, I think because I was just kind of rushing in, let me try again. I think the one that I ultimately beat it with, I didn't do the story character summon, the NPC, just because like I ran past and I was like, ah, crap, I forgot to grab it this time.
Yeah.
And then that gives you less health and you're more or that gives the boss less health and you're more practiced. And I had my clone with me, so like I think that's actually how I ended up finishing it off.
Yeah,
I like that fight. That's like one of if I were to like rank designs, that one would be pretty high for me across Elden Ring, period. Just because it's so bizarre with the rotating head and stuff like that. It really freaked me out the first time I saw it in a trailer.
Ren, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say I fought that boss dozens of times. I've fought every boss in this DLC dozens of times. But listen,
But I think we definitely went in lower level, no Skidoo tree fragments.
Also, listen. I mean, if you don't have that much HP, it's not gonna take that long to die, which means you can try again faster.
That's true.
Yeah, see, we know what we're doing. We got it. Yeah, always right.
One of my favorite bosses that Justin K wrote in was Demi-Human Swordmaster Owns.
I
is
love that
literally
guy.
Yoda, tiny dude with a glowing green
Yeah.
short sword who acrobatically flips and scampers all around the arena. Also has a force slam attack, a grab attack that telekinetically lifts you up and smashes you into the ground. Go ahead, Ren.
This is them at their most this is them at their most playful and referential that FromSoft has been in years. Like, that's the thing. All of these are jokes. They are using every single tool in their toolkit to make jokes. It's for comedy. It is to make fun of you and themselves. They are putting Yoda in there.
That was one of the funniest bosses because me and Tish effectively stun locked him where I don't think he even got off 2 attacks. So like he just kept like being knocked on his ass, and then he would get up and like me or the summon would knock him down again, and he like making little like noises. But then I did level his spirit up, and he is really fun to summon because it's just this little guy with a lightsaber who flips around the arena.
Is he like in a dungeon or something? I don't think I've seen this guy.
Yes, he's in an optional dungeon.
Okay.
It's pretty close to the first area.
Okay.
It is the first area, basically.
Let's talk about, as Kevin K tells us the real name for, the furnace golems. The big ol' flame guys. The furnace golems are my favorite enemy so far. I found a blood stain of someone getting picked and thrown into the top. Circling around is the funniest thing before it happened to me about 2 minutes later. They are... I love that they are big guys who are just walking around the world that you can see from like a mile away, which is some of my favorite stuff. I also love, as Gabe C writes in, there's one that's positioned very close to a settlement, meaning when you're fighting it, it is just smashing like tents and NPCs and just like everything's going flying as it's like kicking stuff at you. It's really, really cool.
I actually think that's the new default soul farming location is what you're referring to. People have turned that into like the new default soul farm. I think it's a bridge. Are you talking about the bridge? I've heard about a bridge.
I don't know. It's somewhere where
bridge.
there's just like a bunch of tents.
I do feel bad when I like pick a fight with it around a bunch of sheep in a field, and then it goes like, and all you hear is like the amount of souls like rushing to you, and I'm like, oh no.
Have you guys
y'all
killed any
fight
of those
these? Y'all fight these guys?
I tried, and it kicked my butt, and then I said never again.
Here's the thing. I've killed like 7 of them, and it's like not worth it. So this is actually, Kyle, I was thinking about you wall fighting them because they're actually very easy. It's just kind of a weird souls, like it doesn't seem like part of it, which is they have a stomp attack where it's just a giant geyser of flame that goes across the ground or like a big shockwave. Kyle, it's your Twitter thread of jumping over expanding rings in
Sure.
video games. All you have to do is just jump a little off the ground. You don't even need to be on torrent. You can just be standing next to their legs and jump, and you won't get hit by it. And you hit their leg enough, and eventually they get staggered and fall down, and you can do like a critical attack on their face, and you do that like twice, and you take them out. But
Do they respawn?
No.
No. Interesting.
But they don't really drop anything interesting. Some of them drop the tears that you can use in your like
Larval
physic
tears?
glass. Yes.
Oh,
Some of them have that.
Got it.
Yeah, but others just drop. They have like a faceplate that can be used in crafting like a very powerful firebomb. But I don't know about y'all. I never use consumables in this game because I'm like, well, if I need it once and I use it on a run where I die, then they're wasted.
Are you guys finding a bunch of cookbooks? Because I swear everywhere I go, it's a cookbook, and I'm like, I don't craft.
Nope.
I haven't crafted a single thing in this game.
Same.
Yeah, Ren, have you crafted? Are you crafting?
What? I've never crafted once in this game.
Okay, that's
Exactly.
I think I did craft some of the multiplayer like.
Yeah,
I did some
I
of those.
I actually made some like raisins to give to Torrent when he gets damaged. You know, that kind of helps.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I do think that other than the Erdtree fragments, this DLC does kind of have a problem with rewards, where sometimes you find a fragment, or we haven't talked about, there's also the like ones that level up your summons. There's like a different thing that you can
the
find.
Ghost Glovewort and the Grave Glovewort. They give you
Well,
a
no,
bunch of those.
Not those.
Oh, the Summons
other thing-
Ash. Oh,
yeah, the summon ashes, which is
the
like in the
Erdtree
same...
fragments for your summons.
Yes, exactly. But a lot of times you're running through, you either get a cookbook for a recipe I'm never going to use, or it's like, somber smithing stone 6. And I'm like, I can buy every smithing stone back at the keep. I've got all of them. I don't need these anymore. And so, like, I don't really mind because exploring is fun enough. But I do think that kind of a problem with the base Elden Ring was that a lot of times you'd be finding rewards that weren't super relevant to you. And I don't think they've completely fixed that. I still think that you're finding a bunch of stuff that's like, oh, well, never going to use that.
My counterpoint is that like I have had the opposite experience in terms of like finding like a ton of use for smithing stones. Like I basically did not use any non-unique weapons at all during the base game, and since starting the DLC, I fully leveled Milady. I fully leveled the Dryleaf arts. I've also been doing I didn't mention this earlier. I also have been doing hand-to-hand combat stuff, but with magic fists.
How is that?
It's good. I like it. I think the poise damage that they do is fun. I think it's just like if you have okay strength and dex, which my build does have, because the Rolana's great swords use strength, dex, int, and faith all equally. And so I have to have like a pretty solid stat spread. And so I basically have those as like a sidearm for dealing like poise damage, or like dealing with enemies who are resistant to stab and slash damage.
Right. Sam said the new Dryleaf martial arts moveset looked too cool to pass up. It's made me change up my playstyle because it forces me to get close to my targets. I wish I hadn't finished the main game so I could go back and fight the end bosses with my fists and kicks.
Yeah, I'm usually not so into the weapons, but I'm using like what is it called? The wing stance. The Ash of War wing stance. And it's got like a ton of movement in it as well, very similar. And it's just, I am also smithing stone broke because I've like leveled up like 5 different weapons at this point, and I am just like I'm just broke. I don't have any more.
But there's tons in the forges. That's the thing I was going to say, is that like
I have the bearings for them too, but it's like then I have to go farm runes for them.
Well, they're in the forge. I mean, they're like scattered on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Just clarify.
It's like I'm spending more than I'm collecting. We're at a deficit right now. We're at a bit of a deficit.
Well, it's funny because I never use. I guess you collect the like, the kind of souls that you can crack open at any time, you know, the different levels of them. The only two situations I use those is if I'm like 1,000 points away from a level up, then I'll do it. But the other is if I'm going back and buying a bunch of stuff. That's basically my like rainy day fund. So for instance, I found I'm trying to think who used them. I think it's the Death Knight, who's a boss in one of the other
the
like
dual
optional
axes?
basements. Yes, they're
Twin
gold
axes?
dual
Yeah.
axes, and they have their like ash whatever is a like a lightning teleport that then you can follow up with like a lightning spin. And I really wanted to use those, and so I went back to the round table hold and just like cracked open, you know, 75k worth of souls, bought all of the stones that I would need to level them up, and then like immediately leveled them up to like, you know, 25 or 10 or whatever. And like I like having the ability to do that, but I'm just buying all the stones. I've got money saved away for that.
But isn't there like to like max out a weapon? There's only
Those
like,
are
standard
those
right?
are more rare.
So that's the thing, though. They're guaranteed rewards for the forges. At the end of every forge, you get an
Yeah.
ancient somber smithing stone. Sorry,
Cool.
Ancient dragon smithing stone or whatever.
Yeah, and they're
Yep.
also they're handing them out more in the DLC. I think
Yeah.
I've got them from fighting dragons. Maybe you kill some dragons, but they're on the Cerulean coast. There are a bunch of these big like kind of coffins, and on the top of them they either have the like great ghost
Glowwort.
or the, you know, maximum stone or whatever. So like
You just can't stay away from those coffins, can you, Jacob?
I love the
Cracking them?
coffins. So yeah, they're giving you more opportunities to
Yeah, and I
to
do
use
appreciate
them.
that they're encouraging you to level up other. It is kind of annoying though that when you get a weapon in the DLC, it's base level. I wish they
Yes.
had maybe like put them halfway leveled so I could at least try it.
Yeah, they did that maybe in Dark Souls 2 they did that. Deuterado said, that means any new weapon I find, I need to spend time buying all the upgrade materials and upgrading the weapon before I can even use it. Yeah, it's a little cumbersome.
I mean, yeah, that's really my lazy frustration. It's like I don't want to spend time doing that. I want to spend time fighting and exploring and stuff like that. And my scimitars are getting the job done. You know?
I will say though, I actually think there's a pretty like cool or smart little design thing here with giving you a bunch of the ancient dragon smithing stones, which is it encourages you to care about the other ones. Because
Yeah.
like because suddenly you're like, oh, I can have another maxed out weapon. Your brain goes, ooh, now I can have another fully maxed out weapon, which then encourages you to like go back through and like level a bunch of more stuff up, and then combining that with a DLC that provides areas that are built around providing upgrade materials, those being the forges. Like I think there is some clever ideas going on that are actually, I think, like this is an instance of like Erdtree's really good design ideas coming up against the rest of Elden Ring and kind of like slamming into it, and like there being some like awkward like lining up happening.
Yeah. I think that's true. I've been really enjoying I don't know if it's classified as like a hammer, but the Black Knights that are around, some of them have that thing that has like a giant kind of like octagonal top. And that's really fun because it has a unique guard counter where when you guard counter with it, you'll like throw a line of holy across the floor that then explodes, so it actually like
Hell
hits
yeah.
twice, and that's another one that I've upgraded a number of times. I just want to read some kind of fun experiences from the community. Sean S said, the funniest thing I saw was when exploring a cliff to the west of the starting area, I came across gold sheep. I kept walking along, and then I found a gold sheep that was absolutely massive. The lightning started crashing all around me, and I felt like I was facing the sheep god of thunder. Any of y'all finding big sheep? Because I
I
did.
found
Yeah.
a big sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't try to like fight it. I sort of just left it to its own devices.
Yeah, I
found
was
a
like, you're
few
cool.
of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
never
stay
fight.
over there.
Yeah, I never attacked the random little animals. But yeah,
I
the
know.
southeast is like there's a lot of dragons over there, and that's where I ran into like, oh my god, there's giant sheep over here.
Frostforus said, I found a lake with a whole horde of the blue ghost wormy guys all encircling a single tortoise. Were they protecting him? Did they want a pet dog?
Yep.
Weird party? I stood too close for too long and they all started attacking me. Afraid I would accidentally kill the tortoise if I fought them, I just left them all to do their thing.
So that tortoise actually has a person didn't notice a key thing about that tortoise. That tortoise
Oh?
has 2 heads. That is a 2-headed tortoise that has its own bespoke medallion. For one of the equipment slots, the talisman slots. There is a 2-headed
I
turtle
did-
talisman.
I got that
Is
because
that the
it's
stamina
stamina faster. Yeah.
Yeah,
I need that one.
If you
Do I have
pick
to kill
that
the
up,
turtle?
no, you don't have
Oh,
to
thank
kill the
God.
turtle, but if you picked that up and you didn't notice the turtle, then you might have killed the turtle in the crossfire because the turtle is standing directly on top of where that item is. Please
That's
do not
so
kill the
funny.
turtle.
So you have to basically kind of gently push the turtle out of the way, kind
Exactly.
of. Like, excuse me, sir.
Mitch said, I've noticed a tremendous amount of eagles in this DLC. All over the map, they congregate in groups of 2 to 3 along the edge of the continent.
Yeah.
Is
I've been
there any
honestly tripping over
significance?
animals. Is anyone else tripping over animals? Because I've been running and I keep like tripping over squirrels. Why are there so many animals here?
Yeah, the squirrels that look like Muad'Dib from Dune.
Yeah,
The little like
yeah.
kangaroo squirrels.
And did anyone else hear like the owl shriek or like one of the birds?
Yes. Very early on.
It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, Nick O said, man, those screaming birds sure are horrifying. Yes, they are.
I'm a big fan of the grave birds. I think the grave birds are one of my like favorite. I think like the small grave birds, because like I think the big grave birds from the main game were a bit much, but the smaller grave birds that they have like put throughout the DLC are I think maybe my favorite bird enemies that FromSoft has ever done.
Those are the
I
ones
think-
that like breathe fire.
Yes. I think that FromSoft has finally correctly tuned a bird enemy. Which
Yeah,
is,
oh my God, yeah.
Over the course of their entire career, they've been
I was just so
slowly
grateful
dialing
for-
in the shields and the birds.
Yep. And like they don't have knives attached to their feet. They're not throwing
they're not
flaming
throwing
barrels at
balls
me. Like I love these birds.
Did you reach? I think Sarah, you might have mentioned. I can't remember exactly. I think it's underground to the south. There's like a big hole that you can drop into, and there's it's a giant. Kyle, fulfilling my role once again as coffin guy. There's a giant cave with big coffins sticking out of the walls. But then in the last, like at the site of Grace, just before the boss, there's this thing where there are like 20 animals, and they're all either sleeping or
think
what
they're
looks
sleeping. I
like
think they're-
bowing down.
No, they're bowing. Though they are bowing. I am
It
pretty
fully
sure they
looks
are
like
in
the
worship.
Lion King. It's like
I checked. I zoomed in to see if they were breathing. Like I
Yeah,
was
me
like,
too.
are they alive?
Okay, so did you two both got there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you fight the boss that is just like Orphan of Kos from Bloodborne?
No, I wait, which boss are you talking? Wait, what is the name of the boss?
It's let's
Something
see.
night.
I wrote
Not
it down.
putrid, but it's like
Okay.
Putrescent Night.
So I have
Putrescent.
found the boss
Putrescent.
area, but for some reason it didn't. I don't know how to make it fight me. I'm just
oh,
like
really? So
in
you
the
like jumped into the giant hole, but it didn't spawn?
I don't know if I went to the giant hole.
Oh, it's
there's
one of those things where you
okay.
have to jump.
No.
No.
There's a hole I gotta go into. All right, I'll go back there and go to the hole ASAP.
Go back to the animals and jump.
Because this is one of the sections where there's like a FromSoft note that's like jump. But this was maybe my most exciting boss that I fought so far. It's the Putrescent Knight, and I was just like I was losing my mind over what felt like the references because it has you enter into it like you enter into the final boss of the second DLC in Dark Souls 2, which is the Ivory Knight,
King.
the Ivory
It's Ivory
King,
King.
where it's like you jump down and fall
and
into
then-
this like lava hellhole,
With your
and in this
boys.
you jump down and you find it, but then it straight up, it is like a rotting knight riding a rotting horse, and the weapon it's using, it looks like the Orphan of Kos from Bloodborne, and it was just like so psyched to be fighting it. And it was like it was one of those fights where it's like I was fully out of Estus and it was on its last legs, and it was a really tight. So one of my favorite experiences.
Hell yeah.
Did y'all find Ramina, Saint of the Bud?
Nope.
No.
Okay,
Although
maybe
I will be
spell it.
hanging out with Ramina Saint at the butt after this stream.
I was going to say.
Is that the one where you can touch them, or is that something? Am I thinking about something else?
Are you thinking of the flower thing? Where then that's after the putrescent night, I think.
Okay.
Because there's that flower thing. There's like a flower NPC, and you can touch them, and then you just die.
Mhm.
And it's like, there's got to be something going on here.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
You literally
I
just
think
drop dead, and it says you died.
Sure.
I think I did defeat Ramina last night.
The
That was,
scorpion
the last thing I did. Yeah.
thing. There's like a scorpion lady.
Yeah. Every time you
Finally,
guys say a
From is
name,
doing
I'm
another
like
bug
Googling
lady.
it.
Yeah.
Every time you guys say a name, I'm like Googling. I'm like, have I fought this person? Okay, yes, I did fight this because I don't catch anybody's name.
Ramina was another thing that I did leaving the wrong exit from the Shadow Keep. And then after you fight her, there's this site of grace that looks like it has the what are they named in Demon Souls? The monumentals. It looks like there are a bunch of monumentals from Demon Souls that are just sitting around at the site of grace, and it's all very my head's spinning. It's very exciting. Danderson asks an important question. How effed up is it that the parents of Renala and Rolana decided to name their kids with very similar names?
Are they twins?
Gotta stick to
canonically?
it.
I thought they were older and younger,
Okay.
I think. But
Yeah.
they do have the same parents.
Which is who's Renala's parents? I guess we don't know.
I don't know. We might know. I don't know.
Who knows? I'm interested to see how America factors into all of this. I'm interested to see how everything factors in. But we've seen all the America statues, and they're all headless in this horrible land.
Well, I have to tell you a crazy thing that happened to me, which is it was just like a random castle, kind of random dungeon. I completed the dungeon, and then I was wandering around outside and found my way into its basement, where there were just a bunch of corpses on the ground. And then there were some items, and one of the items was just Marika's rune. Just like a great rune sitting there that didn't seem to have any utility.
Did you read the description of that? It's just a standard rune. It's called Marika's rune because it's the rune that Marika gave to soldiers who are extremely, extremely accomplished. It's just a standard. It's just a standard rune thing.
Then in the Mesmer, his eye looks like that great rune. But I don't know if they're related or not, but it looks like the same thing. I don't know. I ate it.
I
ate it.
I don't know if it was important. I ate it. I need the levels.
I got two items that I did not know what either of them did. One of them was called Iris of Grace, that said place on the eye of another to grant them the light of grace. And then I got a different version of that item.
I need that.
I have no idea. I got a different one that was like the dark version of that.
Oh.
And I haven't found the use for either of them. But
You'll find it.
Okay.
Yeah, I found it. I guess I just won't spoil it. It's in and around the Shadowkeep area as well. You'll find the NPC who needs it. Because I've been trying to follow this Mikola and Saint Trina thing that keeps getting referenced, and I'm still parsing through it as well with all the items. There's a lot of Saint Trina's items, and a lot of stuff talking about the relationship. Are they the same person? Are they one person split into two? There's a lot going on there.
Have you guys fully filled out your map? Okay, because there's two icons on my map that I just cannot find for the life of me.
There is that one that's in the northwest.
Yeah. So about the one in the northwest. Yeah,
it's just where the hell is that thing? And all of the messages are where is the map?
Okay, yeah.
I think that northwest one is you have to reach by going through the Shadowkeep. I think that is from because I found the That is the only map segment that I'm missing, and I have not gotten through the western side of the Shadow Keep.
Okay,
Because
but you have the
I-
southern area as well, where there's like
Yes,
a lot
I
of
have
dragons.
all the south. I have
Not either.
found.
Okay.
Kyle,
Like, I
do
have
you
it
know
marked
that
on my
they're-
map, and I'll get to like a good vantage point, and I just see a blue line in like fog, and I'm like, it doesn't even look like I can get there. It must be underground. or
Well,
something, right?
that's been my experience with that Northwest one, where I've been in a place that's just fully above where it seems like the map is. And so if you look at my map, I've got a whole line of sites of grace through it,
Same.
but
Yep.
I don't have the map. Or it's frustrating, but it is so funny that like on every ledge and in everything there are messages that are like still no map, and I'm like, I'm with you, buddy. I don't know where it is.
Same.
Um
Yeah, it bugs me to not have it at least filled out. You know, even if I'm not fully exploring, it's like I don't like this. You know, just smudgy fog of war on my map.
Yeah. Let's talk about Renala as a boss fight. We've been talking around it for a long time. She's got 2 blades. She moves around a lot. She's using magic, and then kind of in the halfway point, one of her blades is magic and one lights on fire. The first time that I fought this, because this was one of the ones that I fought twice, I just loaded up on magic defense, and I almost didn't even have to learn her move set. I had a miracle that was like strong magic shield, and I put on like a magic resist amulet. And so like I was just able to completely tank her like double moon spell and stuff.
But it's so cool to jump the double moon spell. I've
Right,
never
and
felt
so
cooler.
I did that the
moon
second
spell.
time, and it felt way cooler than just eating them.
It's so funny to hear you, Jacob, be like, "This is what I prepared. I went in, you know." And my strategy for every boss is the same. Is like I rolled a lot, and then I hit them as hard as I could, and I rolled away. Like it's again, I'm not doing it right.
I disagree. I think you're doing, but you have, and so you're using the mimic tier, so you've got like 2 of you that are rolling
And then I'll
around.
bring in someone else, and I just like hit them with the tornado from 10 feet away. And when they get close to me, I run away and hit them with some more tornado. Then they die, and I feel really great about it.
Ren, how hard is learning the parry timings on Rolana?
Rolana, actually, I mean, I spent a long time doing it because I also was playing. I was still playing with the input delay. But
Wow.
honestly, they're not that terrible. I think that like generally you can parry the first attack of all of her sequences, and they're like relatively predictable by the end. Like, so my margin for error in that fight was I could take 1 hit. And I could not get hit with the second hit of any combo. If I got hit with the second hit of a combo, I was done. And so the parry timings were generous enough, as long as you're using the golden parry, to get hit with the first hit of an attack. There's some combos that she can do where you can get hit with the first swing and then parry the second swing after like the stun lock. So like they're not terrible, but like when your margin for error is you can take 2 hits the whole fight, then like it doesn't matter much.
Harrison Holt McHale said, Raphael L said, nearly all the bosses feel like a spectacle. I kept feeling both proud and disappointed after defeating some of these. The only reason I was disappointed is because it was over. If I could change one thing about the DLC, it would be to add a system to fight the bosses again, like in Sekiro. Apart from that, the bosses were beautiful and perfect. I do love the Sekiro boss remembrance things are really fun, and I do wish that From would put it in other games. Here's something that I've wanted to mention, which is kind of separate from the DLC. They did a big patch of the game at the same time that the DLC came out, which added a bunch of new things. One of those is that you can use torrent in the final boss fight.
I'm
which
so
feels,
mad.
It feels like it was always intended.
I knew it.
But the thing that has been the biggest change for me, and it's exactly what I wanted, and I'm so happy they did it, is they added a tab in the menu that's just new item. Because so many times in Elden Ring, I would pick something up and I'd be like, what the hell did I just pick up? Is it a weapon? Is it a talisman? Is it a crafting material? And I would just be searching. And so now you have to enable it in the options menu. It's not on by default, but like you've just got a thing.
That was my
like,
next question.
Yeah, and it's so useful because it's like you pick up a note, the note's right there. You pick up a weapon and you want to check the stats on it, right there. Huge improvement.
I have been reading so much more, like, and learning so much more just because it's crazy easier to find the stuff that you just picked up.
Yeah.
So it's in the options menu?
Yeah, under the display tab specifically, which makes I think it should have been on by default. It makes no sense, but you just can't explain it.
It's really the Dark Souls of options menus.
Yeah.
Is figuring out how to turn it on. Ryan Dodson said that this patch also nerfed a lot of popular weapons and spells. My Faith build that uses Envoy's Longhorn that I've been working on for a month wasn't cutting it. I didn't know what to do to replace it until I found the Anvil Hammer. It's a giant fire-spewing anvil on a stick that shoots a patch of spears out on the ground. God, I love this weapon. The staggering it gives is insane. I'm smacking Black Knights on their asses and laughing at their feeble attempts to get up after I crit them.
Sorry, but you also have to turn on the mark new items in the options menu, which I'm literally doing right now because I was like, I have to. But it gave you a tutorial to let you know that existed. So I was like, I haven't seen a single exclamation.
I thought that it was on by default, but it's not.
Yeah, I was like, all right.
You cannot explain it.
Sometimes.
We cannot fathom understanding the devs to make such an amazing game and then just completely fumble the most important setting.
They do that. That is, I feel like that's part of From is like, it's incredible, but then there'll just be like this one element that's like, that is dumb. That is so stupid, and it shouldn't be that way.
Have any of you, there are a lot of new classes of weapons. One of them are throwables. I saw a clip of someone doing like a big hammer throw, like Olympic swing around like hammer that you
I think I saw that one too.
Have any of you found that? Because I really, really want to use it.
No, but I do have the throwing blades that what are they? I don't know if they're monks or shamans. Those guys that will break your neck with their toes.
Yep.
The blades that they have, I got those blades. And the thing that I'm really confused about is I cannot initiate combat with the throw. That I can only hit them with the throw if they've already aggroed to me. Which I feel like defeats the purpose, but maybe it would be OP if it was both a throwing weapon and a combat weapon. So I don't know, but it's been a lot of fun.
That is interesting. I do think it's a real classic FromSoft kick in the teeth to have like the first enemy you find in the DLC be that guy who is so acrobatic, flipping around, will break your neck. Lewis K says, getting hit with that gorgeous landscape only for the first enemy in the entire DLC to F me up 7 times in a row before getting past them, only for me to realize it was respawnable when I died 5 minutes after I first killed it. Incredible stuff.
Yeah, that was a moment of like, I think I'm ready for this. I beat Moog again. I was feeling good. And it was just like, you're not ready for this. All right. Thank you.
Our Peppy Disc is talking about how good the spirit summoning system is, and I'm happy to see them double down on it. One of the most frustrating, we don't need to talk about internet discourse about FromSoft games, but like there are so many summons in this game that deciding you're not going to use them for some arbitrary reason feels like it's like deciding you're not using swords. I'm like, they give you 50 of them. Like, you gotta use these guys.
Well, and it's so hard to, like, level them up, too. I'm like, are these guys good? I don't know. Like, I wish that there were more ways to test things. Besides, like, going into a certain location and summoning them and just seeing what happens.
Because it's like, Black Knife Tish is really good, and the Yoda guy is okay, and obviously the Mimic tier is good. But there are some that it's like, yeah, you might spend 20 ghost glove worts, to level them up, only to find out that they like still can't do anything.
Yeah, but I will say I feel like they're onto us, because the minute I walk into every single boss arena, I'm immediately attacked. Like, they don't give you a second to they don't respect my time to summon. They literally have an attack that is the only reason it exists is to knock you when you're summoning. Yes. And I'm convinced of this. Like, they are punishing me because I am lazy.
No, it feels very intentional.
I know that my character can ring a bell and drink a flask at the same time. Like they know how to do that. It doesn't have to be two separate actions. They can just be like ring, 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 ring. You know?
I did find, and we can talk about this more next time, but in the Abyss, there's that character from the trailer who appears to be pulling his head off. I found that guy, and he has like, you walk in that door, you are getting smacked in 0.25 seconds.
Oh no.
Yeah, do your buffs outside the door, drink your flask, and then just walk in and pray.
We have a couple comments on how much they're referencing Berserk, obviously the FromSoft's classic thing. Renata, have you read it? Kyle, have you read
I'm
it?
a Berserk liker.
No, but I should read it though, right? Like
You should read Berserk. Yeah,
Okay.
I would say that you should read Berserk.
but it's unfinished. Not to take a big Berserk.
No, it's
Sidebar.
the Kentaro Miura did pass away, but the series was then handed off to his close friend and his assistants, who are finishing out what was basically written, what was
Okay.
told to that close collaborator. So like Miura's portion is done, but they're finishing the series.
So it will have a conclusion. I'm not entering into like a no finish line situation if I start reading it.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed?
yeah. I mean, we'll see if they finish it.
Okay, all right, sure, yeah, okay. I would like to read it. Yeah.
Spencer Bettine said Miyazaki has never been shy to admit the amount of inspiration the manga classic Berserk has had on Dark Souls. This DLC in particular seems to be oozing with inspo from the climax of the Golden Age arc. With that in mind, I had to do a full Guts roleplay for the DLC, and I haven't felt the need to divert from my build in any particular way, although I immediately equipped the Savage Lion's Claw Ash of War once I found it. The only weapon I'm craving to find is that crossbow the Black Jail Knight had.
Yes,
it
I was-
screams Guts.
I was gonna say this is one of the first things that Austin pointed out to me was that the Black Jail Knight is Guts. That is a reference to Guts Berserk, who has an automatic
He's got like a
crossbow.
machine gun crossbow.
Yes, he has an automatic crossbow and a cannon for an arm at various points in the series. And so if there is a cannon, if someone has a cannon for an arm, they're also doing a Guts there. Like
I did find that
unrelenting
crossbow
Guts.
somewhere, but I can't remember where. It was like very far away from the Black Jail Knight. Alec P said, I'm getting heavy Berserk vibes from the exploration in this DLC. The ideas of a shadow realm, the trees with bodies hanging from them ominously, especially all the gross little dudes you fight along the way. Yes. On a different roleplay topic, Resnet said, I have a dear friend with whom I play through most FromSoft games. We always do a couple cosplay when we play together. That's awesome. I am cosplaying Robert Baratheon from Game of Thrones pre-Boar, so I'm a strength build that focuses on roar-based abilities, big hammers, and axes. The winged great horn is my go-to for the antler motif. My friend is playing Stannis Baratheon post-corruption. He starts out every fight with a holy sword, but when push comes to shove, he'll take out the blasphemous blade and shoot frenzy flame all around. Very cool. I love that idea. What are some other... Do y'all want to talk about Mesmer? You can do it. Like, I'm not...
I haven't
I won't be
fought
spoiled. Okay.
Mesmer yet. Yeah.
Then we can
I just think he's
save it
got like
for
some
next
weird
time.
mommy issues that we haven't worked through yet. That's all I know. Ooh, and my favorite line in the entire game was when you're in that first legacy dungeon and you find that sort of horn set in the back room. She refers to Mesmer as a wanton strumpet.
Yes.
And she calls him a strumpet.
Someone actually wrote in about that. Will N. The line "progeny of the wanton strumpet" from the NPC.
Oh, so she was
behind
calling
the locked
Merrick the
door.
strumpet.
Yeah. Progeny of the wanton strumpet.
I will say, we gotta stop letting George R.R. Martin think about gender. Like we gotta stop letting this guy think about gender because he's doing it too much. I don't know what he's cooking in there. I don't know what he's cooking, but like I don't want a taste of it. I don't want a taste of it, Mr. Martin.
How much do you think? That's a really good question. Of like, how much was R.R. Martin involved in this story? I hadn't even thought about it.
I did see that apparently Mikola is like an R.R. Martin character. Like Mikola was like I read I think I saw there was a PC Gamer article maybe. It was Well, it says games. Well, I'll have to find a corroboration for the. But this is all to say that apparently, Mikola was a George R. R. Martin insert, and then basically this was Miyazaki like following through on it.
So my impression was always that Martin basically wrote a bunch of background. He kind of like wrote a bunch of characters, and then FromSoft like decided what to do with them. But that's not really based on anything other than like vibes.
I believe that's what happened, but then we're seeing in this DLC like those characters who were in the background are becoming like active participants in the narrative. Yeah. Like that is, from what I understand, is of the DLC story, like characters who were not doing anything. Jay Newt, I'm not saying that he did anything with the DLC in terms of like writing the DLC. I believe what we're discussing is the idea that the story beats that were described by Martin were
yeah. Like right, he wrote the Bible.
Right, he wrote the but the thing is that all of that shit is like the central question of the DLC's narrative is what happened there. So like I do think that like that influence is felt.
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
Charlie S says, has anyone met Igon yet? I was so blown away by the actor's performance. He made such an impact with so few lines. I don't think I have.
That's because for whatever reason, Jacob, you've just drilled down to the weirdest location you could find. And you said the surface? I'm not going to go there.
I guess I have not found him. Is he cool? You guys like him?
I mean, I haven't done his storyline yet. His storyline goes towards, he's got something to do with the dragons, so I don't want to like spoil him. But he's another NPC that you can bring to a boss that will accompany you into a boss battle.
Have y'all met the people who were just screaming about Bale?
That's Igon.
Oh, well, there are others. They're like ghosts and
one of
whatever.
them is, Igon is also screaming about you. First, when you encounter him, he's writhing on the ground, cursing Bale's name, and he basically pleads with you to go and like basically destroy him.
Maybe I have, because I think because I found my way. I did get to I got to the corpse of that giant dragon on the ground after hearing someone talk about Bale, and then I met an NPC there that was like, "Hey, go kill Bale." But I haven't found Bale. Was he
writhing and screaming on the ground?
I think
That's very specific to Igon's personality.
I think I even encountered Bale. Right, Bale is a boss, right?
Yeah, because
there was a very difficult dragon that I encountered that was very much like, I will see you later, bud.
Yeah, Bale is at the top of the mountain peaks.
Okay.
He's at the top of the mountain.
Maybe I just hit a tough dragon on the way there.
Because there are a couple dragons that I fought that are called like Ghost Flame Dragon or something that are kind of like decaying and have like weird skeletal wings that have been super fun. But they've just been like in a lake. I find one of those guys and fight them.
Did you guys run into dragons fighting each other?
Two dragons fighting each other?
Yeah.
Are you at the base of the mountain then?
It must be.
You might be.
Because it definitely felt like, I was like, this is cool. I found that giant dragon and I was like blown away by that. And then I found some other dragons. I found some dragons fighting each other. And I was just like, I'm not ready for this. Like I got there pretty early by accident.
You might be in the Bale area. You might be in the Bale zone.
Bale zone.
A Bale zone. Michael K says, my favorite moment so far was discovering the Grand Altar of Dragon Communion. It was one of those times that I just found a side dungeon and it opened up a whole new area. I think I remember, because this is a dungeon where the boss, you like drop down like a big hole. And it's one of those times where you don't take fall damage. The visuals of that massive dragon blew me away. The priest is telling me to feast on dragon hearts, the wind whipping and lightning storms in the environment. It's so gnarly. Yeah, I love and I am, again, not familiar with the lore, but the commitment Elden Ring has to being like a true dragon is a size you cannot comprehend. My favorite moment in the original Elden Ring, or one of my favorite like scenes, is when you get to like the big city in the middle, and there's that petrified dragon, and you're like, how big is it? And then you get to it and you can like run around on top of it.
I mean, you get to Crumbling Farm Azula, and like that whole place is like there is a dragon that is significantly larger than the one even in the Erdtree place, like around Farm Azula, if I'm like remembering correctly. Like the scale of the dragons is like pretty ridiculous. Like I'm pretty sure that the one in the capital is by far not the biggest. I believe that was actually a pretty minor dragon, which is which is again part of the big problem that the Carrion royal family had, is that turns out dragons real big cause a lot of problems.
I think the only thing you need to know about the dragons lore-wise is that they came before America, and they were defeated by the Erdtree, and kind of they used to be like on top, and then America came and used the Erdtree to sort of like take them down. So they've been there much longer than most of the other people.
Did anyone else use the dragon incantations much? Because I basically exclusively used the dragon incantations during my main playthrough.
They seemed so cool.
I had them, but they weren't doing enough damage for like the wind up. I don't know if I needed to like spec differently. I wanted to use them.
I used them extensively because I was doing int faith, and then was also had like just like I was using every single, like I was doing my little faith build, and so I wanted to use all the dragon stuff, and so my character has her bright yellow eyes from imbibing all of her dragon hearts. I'm very actually excited to see I assume they added the ghost flame breath to the Dragon Communion Church.
I saw it. I didn't have enough dragon hearts to afford it, but they added it. Neil Smith said, I haven't been able to play Shadows of the Erdtree yet because I've been traveling in Norway. I did get to visit a real-life inspiration for a location in Elden Ring, the Swords in Rock Monument in Havsfjord, Norway. I'm sure I pronounced that exactly right. This is, I'll drop a picture of this in our Discord. This is literally just, it's just a thing from Elden Ring.
Yeah, it would be like, there's got to be a grace point around here somewhere. You come up on this thing, yeah.
Speaking of stones and swords, I found there is a place in, again, a weird exit off Shadow Keep, where it's like this, the section of kind of high up platforms. There's a fully invisible bridge that you have to go over that you can see like people have written messages across. So I knew where it is. And at the other side, there is just a stone sword stuck in its scabbard. It's like an item that you can pick it up. That, Kyle, I think it is the sword from Shadow of the Colossus. It looks so much like it. Like, it really seems like an intentional reference. And it also feels like you might be able to, like, do something to, like, get the sword out of its sheath.
So it's not like a weapon that you pick up, you're saying?
It is a weapon that you pick up, but it's, like, bad. But I think it feels like maybe you could do... It's almost like a sword in the stone thing, except the whole sword is stone.
Gotcha.
Brian M. said, did anyone accidentally murder one of the Forager Brood NPCs? They look like the kindred of rot enemies found in Caelid. I realized my crime of prejudice when Sir Moore said some sad dialogue about one of his friends being killed, and I'm standing there like, my bad. He seemed unaware it was me.
No, I go on a attack first base. Like, I attack second. With all the NPCs in this game, I'm like, are you good or bad? Yeah, if they attack first, I follow up, but I try to feel them out first.
I mean, if you can't lock onto them, you're good, right? Or am I crazy?
Yeah, I think that's generally correct.
Okay.
A couple performance notes. Harrison Holt McHale said, having gotten to the Dancing Lion fight, I found myself quite annoyed that there's common frame loss in this boss that happens especially when the boss is attacking. My tolerance for high difficulty and repeated attempts is compromised when the game I'm playing doesn't earn that tolerance. I definitely get frame like hitching, where it'll just stop for a couple seconds and then like speed up. And it doesn't happen to me too much in bosses, but it is annoying for sure.
Where are you guys all playing? PC?
PC.
I haven't had too many frame issues. on my end. I think the worst is just like sometimes when I load into an area, the pop-in's a little bit slow.
Hmm.
But in general, it's been pretty smooth.
Yeah,
Isaac M. Oh, sorry, Kyle. Go ahead.
Oh, I was on PS5, playing in performance mode. I really haven't had any noticeable, like maybe a little bit here and there. Things kind of slow down for a second, but like really not bad at all.
Yeah, FromSoft often has kind of weak PC ports that get eventually adjusted.
Mm.
Isaac M says I've been putting off getting the DLC because I play on Steam Deck, and apparently the update tanked the performance.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's especially a shame because you can play Elden Ring on this was like a big sell of the Steam Deck. That was like a very
I literally think
persuasive
on
argument.
Steam, when they show the Steam Deck, they show the Elden Ring like loading screen, like as the advertisement.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Cerulean Coast. Is this like the coolest looking area in a From game?
I literally had to stop and then I took a photo.
Okay, Renata says no. There are a lot of cool looking areas, but I love just the bloom on like the blue flowers, and then there's like a second place that has red flowers, and they're kind of separate, but you can like get to one from the other. It's so gorgeous. And then there's one of those flame golems there, and you can stand on a cliff above it. And I thought, ha ha ha, I'm so smart. I can just look at him. And then he jumped up and smacked me in like a bespoke attack animation. Renata, what do you think is maybe just the best looking area in this DLC, if not in general?
I mean, I think from the DLC broadly, I think it may be the Crimson Coast so far. I'm not sure. I'm holding my tongue because of the frequency with which I have been blown away by each like subsequent area. I will say wait a minute. Sorry, I'm just putting something together now. Jacob, you said you got to the putrescent knight by riding a coffin. Is that the guy? No, different?
Different.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
I got to the guy who pulls his head off by riding
the coffin. I understand now. Thank you. Sorry, I was clear. That was knocking around in the back of my head.
I mean, I don't doubt that there are other rideable coffins in this DLC that none of us have discovered yet.
Yeah. I just I googled Cerulean Coast. I don't think I've been there.
It's like the southernmost kind of area.
Okay. Yeah, I guess then I haven't been there yet. Yeah, this place looks cool. I'm excited to see it in person.
My favorite part of it is like when you start to work your way along the beach, all of the hand enemies are there, and I was like, this is kind of weird. Like, why are the hand enemies here? And then you round the corner and you crawl up a coffin, and that's where the finger runes are. Yep. And I was like, oh, you know what? This checks out then. I totally get why the hands are here.
They all came from here. Yeah, I think From has always been good at giving you a big vista. Elden Ring was especially good at that. This Erdtree is on another
I think it might
level.
be better in terms of like opening, like drop the title of the location.
The thing that I've been feeling is just kind of like, and Miyazaki has been talking about kind of like Elden Ring is almost the game that I've always dreamed of making. It's not quite, but it's like when I was a kid imagining like what could a fantasy game in the future look like, I feel like the vistas that it's dropping on me are really kind of unlike anything I've ever seen. And there's like this motif where you'll see ruins in the distance that almost look like they're like painted. It's like watercolor on the sky. And I don't know if you eventually get to those or if it's just kind of like set dressing, but like, my God, they know how to frame an image without doing a cutscene or having like Nathan Drake be like, wow, look at that view. They just let you do it.
So if Nathan Drake showed up to comment on a view in Elden Ring, I would be like,
he's the final boss.
Not see this coming.
All right. I think we can start wrapping up here. There are a couple comments that I want to talk about. Nate Wilk says, I use cheats to play this game. I get most fun from the ambience and exploration. One hit mode is what I use for running around, turning it off for the bosses so I can soak in the sounds and sights. Cool.
Is
I
that like
think
that's
that's
like
fun.
a PC mod? Is that?
Yeah.
It's gotta be
Okay.
mod, yeah.
All right, that makes sense.
Which sometimes those cheats are called journalist mode, which guess what? Incorrect, because they beat it before you without mods, dumbass. Um, Brandon S says, I love how goofy From Software let the Divine Beast helmet be. Sure, it clips through everything and looks dumb as hell, but it increases my strength and dexterity, so I'm using it.
Yeah, the
Awesome.
more you talk about all the references too, I'm like, were they just like having a fun time making this DLC? Like they were just in a silly, goofy mood when they made the DLC.
I think so. I mean, so Dan M says, I adore the fact that the level of care and world building in Elden Ring allows From Software to simply drop an entire Dark Souls game in as DLC, which with the Scadutree fragment system is effectively what this is. I'm interrupting myself, but Kyle, I remember when Elden Ring came out and we were talking about it on the MinnMax show, we were like, this is Dark Souls 4 and 5 and maybe 6, and just like how big it is. And this feels
And this
much
one's
the
like, and we'll
same.
throw Bloodborne in there too. We'll just
Yeah.
throw that in there. Yeah.
You
You gotta get in the coffin, but you'll find it.
Dan continues, it's a fantastic achievement from Miyazaki and the whole team over there. My question might be better suited for part 2, but where the heck do they go from here? Just a bigger Elden Ring as a sequel? Would that have the same shock and awe as this has had? Or do you think they scale back to a more focused game, like Sekiro or even a Dark Souls 4?
That's a
I
good
want
question,
I want a
yeah.
Sekiro 2. That is what my heart desires. I don't know if that's what they'll do, but they spent 2 years making this game, which is like an Elden Ring 1.5 in scale and ambition. It's hard to imagine they're just like, and here's another new giant landmass with more bosses, and you can ride your horse around it again.
Yeah, that's a great question because I don't know. It's obviously I wouldn't want it tomorrow, right? That's an absurd notion that could exist within a year or two, like Elden Ring 2. It's like I need more time to sort of be ready for another open world game like this. But I mean, financially, it seems like that's what's going to happen, right? And then
Yeah.
Sekiro is such a. I wonder if they care that everyone is making their own Sekiro now. I feel right. There's so many games that just look like Sekiro that are coming that feel like they're in the same kind of era, and I wonder if they care, or if they're like, they have it covered. We'll do something different, or if they want to revisit that world. I mean, I don't know if this is exactly what you said, Jacob, but if they were like, hey Kyle, what would you like next? Do you want Elden Ring 2? Do you want another Dark Souls? Do you want something completely new? I think I would be in the completely new or Sekiro 2 is what I would like next, please. I think,
Ren.
let's do that cookies and cream sequel. Let's get it going.
I don't think they're gonna do an Elden Ring sequel.
Yeah.
I don't think there's gonna be an Elden Ring 2. I think that if they were going to do something, they would probably just do another I think at this point FromSoft and the stuff, if not FromSoft themselves, FromSoft has created such a signature identity as a development studio that I think that their name and seeing a style of gameplay would be enough to sell people on a project at this point, in a way that I do think that they would be more willing than the average studio to take a swing and not follow up Elden Ring with Elden Ring 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think the accessibility of Elden Ring would make it hard to do a Sekiro 2 or something, which a game where you basically just have to get good, which is much more true in Sekiro than Elden Ring, because you can level up past things in different ways. And so I wonder, and it's Miyazaki's been doing interviews where he's like, look, it's not it's not that I'm like religiously attached to making hard games. Just for Elden Ring, the design necessitates that it's hard for the whole thing to work. But like, I don't. I also think it's not impossible that they make another game that's not doesn't have like the brutally difficult reputation, though. But they probably will.
I mean, it's been their whole, it's like, that's not just like, that didn't come around during the Souls games, right? Like, they had that reputation with the Kingsfield games before that, too. Like, Kingsfield, like, Shadow Tower, the Armored Core games were famously difficult. Like, I do think that Miyazaki, like, the idea that, like, they are going to stray away from games with friction, when that has been the studio's identity for the last like 2 decades, in spite of consistently in spite of all market conditions suggesting evidence to the contrary, kept making Kingsfield games because they were like, God damn it, we want to make Kingsfield games. And so, like, again, I would not be surprised if they are willing to take a big swing here.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else burning that any of you have to say about our first weekend with Shadow of the Erdtree?
I can't believe it like hasn't even been a week yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny. Because I was on the podcast, Jacob, we learned together that I was playing it earlier than we had planned. But it doesn't seem like I'm really any further than you guys. But I do take these games very slow. Which, yeah, like I was worried that like I was almost wondering I was going to have to bite my tongue about bosses and stuff. But I mean, you guys are ripping through it faster than me for sure. It seems that way anyway.
Here's a question. I was just riding along through the Shadow of the Erdtree. Big message, up on the thing, somewhere a great rune has broken, and with it a charm. And we find out that Miquella has just broke his great rune. What does that mean?
When that happens, everyone is also, they were under like a spell from Miquella. If you talk to the NPCs, they're all like, oh, I want to help kindly Miquella. Like, I'm here to follow in kindly Miquella's footsteps. And when that breaks, when you go back and you talk to the NPCs, they all have regained some of their memories. And they're like, I actually don't like Miquella. Or some of them are like doubling and tripling down. And they're like, everyone else is just unworthy.
These other guys.
Yeah, they're like, you're all just unworthy if you aren't able to continue following him without this like weird spell that he has on us. So that's what happens there. For the life of me, because I triggered it when I was in like is it called like the Bonnie Village or like the Pot Village with the guys with the butcher knives? I triggered it leaving there. So most people trigger it going to the Shadow Keep. So I was really confused, and there was like a million signs on the ground, and they all said like, first off, confusion. And then I no longer, when I went to go fight Renala, I no longer had Needle Knight Lita there anymore. She had left. Her summon sign was there, but then when I broke the Great Rune, like when I triggered it, it disappeared, and I was like, uh-oh, we just made our work a lot harder.
That's really interesting. Another question about the lore, just before we finish. Is Miquella literally cutting themselves up?
Yes.
Like when you're like, this is where I took off a hunk of flesh, this is where I took off my arm. Like that's not metaphorical. That's happening.
From what I understand, Miquella's body back in the cocoon is Miquella's body. That is Miquella's physical body having been cast off. Like that is a shell full of blood that like Moog was just like pouring blood on because he was really sad, like from what I have been reading. Like, so I do believe that like he did just like drop pieces of him, including non-physical pieces, from what I understand.
Yeah, and when you talk to it seems that there's something going on where like he is basically discarding all that is like humane about himself as a god for some greater purpose. And when you talk to like an NPC, his name's like Ansbosh, the guy that you meet in the beginning who's like, show me where all of the crosses are. I would love to follow them. When you talk to him again, he basically says that Mikola is wielding love like a weapon. He's like wielding it with evil intent. Which is really, and that he's like thrown off so much of himself. He's essentially just become a monster. That'll be interesting.
I'm sure we're going to find out more in the future. We will be coming back to talk about everything else in Shadow of the Erdtree in about a month is the plan. Something that was difficult about me playing this is like, I have no idea how far I am through this. You know, it's like, I feel like I've done a lot. I don't know if I'm 50% through, if I'm 25% through. You know, it's like I only have one piece of the map left to uncover, but the map keeps going up and down in places that I don't expect it to go up and down. So who knows how much of this thing there is left. But we will be back to discuss it all. If you want your comment read, as we've read so many great comments so far this episode, you can join MinnMax at the $2 tier. You still get a chance to comment on all of these. You also can get a code for Tales of Kanzera Zhao, but only if you're one of the first 100 people to join after this podcast. And if you join for $5, you can listen to the whole thing on audio. You've already watched this one, but next time, you don't want to watch us talk. You want to listen to us while you're washing dishes or something. Renata, thank you so much for joining once again to talk FromSoft. You've referenced a video essay that you made on mapping Elden Ring, which I think is a really great essay. Is there what's that channel called, and are there other places that you want to direct people?
That is youtube.com/@RenOrRaven, all one word, RENORRAVEN. Same thing on Twitter. Yeah, same deal everywhere.
Awesome. Kyle, Sarah, y'all got anything you want people to know about?
I am streaming the DLC on my Twitch channel at SarahPods, if you want to follow along on the adventures.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, subscribe to GameInformer.com, get a physical magazine. It's nice.
And that's it. Thank you for joining us on this first episode of The Deepest Dive. We'll be back soon. Subscribe to MinnMax on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube and all of that. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon.
Did you know that you can more than double the amount of podcasts from MinnMax every single week by supporting us at the $5 tier on Patreon? You don't have to listen through the browser or anything dumb like that. You'll get access to a private RSS feed if you support us on Patreon. You put it in your favorite podcast app, and then bam, you can listen to our weekly bonus podcast Party Chat, the podcast versions of The Deepest Dives, MinnMax interviews, Max spoilers, and you get the MinnMax Show podcast a day earlier than everybody else. So please help support independent games media. Head over to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's.